好，那你先推，我开电脑，我先
Thank you
开
very
电脑。
much. Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. Beautiful day in the Rose Garden. Tremendous distance between chairs.
感谢大家的到
Social
来。
distancing. You practice it
这
very
是
well. We
在
appreciate it. That's
玫
great.
瑰花园，
I want to start today by highlighting several critical developments on
我要
both the
给大
testing
家
and
一
treatment
些最新
that will
消
help us
息。
win our war against the coronavirus. On Friday,
星
the
期
FDA
五
authorized a new test developed by Abbott Labs
允许了一个
that
新
delivers
的
lightning fast
批准了一个
results
新
in
的
as
检
little
测
as
方
5
案，
minutes.
很
That's
快
a
速
whole
的
new
检测方案、
ball game.
检测方法。
I want to thank Abbott Labs for the
感谢他
incredible
们
work they've
所
done.
做
They've been
的
working round the clock. Normally, this
出色
approval
工作。
process
一
from
般
the FDA would take
这
10
个
months and even longer, but we did
药
it in
品
4
局、
weeks.
食物药品局要10
Abbott
月份
has
才能批
stated that
准，
they
但是
will
这
begin
是快
delivering
速通道。
50,000 tests each day
这个
starting this week.
星
And as you know,
期
even before this
我们
development, we've
已
been
经
doing
做
more
了
tests
比其
than
他国家更
any
多
other country
的
anywhere in the
测
world.
试，
It's one of the
所以
reasons
我
that
们
we
显
have
示
more
了比
cases
其
than
他国
other
家更多
countries.
的感染
Because
率
we've been testing, it's
感染
also
人
one of the
数，
reasons that we're just about the lowest in terms of mortality
因
rate.
为我
Because we've
们
been
也
doing more testing.
在
So we
看
have
这个死
bigger
亡率，因
numbers
为
to
我
look
们
at.
检测的很多。
I want to also thank
我
General
们也
Semonite
跟
of
陆
the Army
军
Corps of
工程
Engineers
兵，
and General Polovacek, who's
等一
here
下
with
他
us,
们
is
会
going
有
to say a few words in a little while.
来发言。
What the Army Corps of Engineers did
陆军工
along
程
with
兵
FEMA
和
in New
紧急
York
事
was
务
incredible.
署
They built
作
2,900
建造医
beds
院，
worth of hospital, an incredible
在
hospital
纽约
in the Javits Center,
中
which I
心
know well.
建
And
了
I just want to say
临时
that
医院，
was unreal. They
在
did it
4
in less
天
than 4
之内
days.
就做完了。
People have never seen anything like that. And it's
这是一个
an
非常复
incredible,
杂的、
complex, top of the line
非常
hospital.
先进的
They did it so quickly.
医院。
Everyone's trying to figure out how they did it,
我
including
虽
me. I
然
was a good
是
builder.
对
But they
建
did
筑
it
业
very
很
quickly,
有
Mike. So
经
we're
验，
very,
但
we're
是
very
是让
happy.
我
So I
非
want
常
to
的
thank
敬
Army
佩
Corps of
他们的
Engineers,
速度
FEMA,。the incredible job they
他们
have
现在
done.
已
Now they're
经
moving to
前
other
往其他地
locations
区
throughout the
继
country
续建
where they already have people building hospitals. We're doing them
建
in
医院，
Louisiana,
像
New
在路易
Jersey,
斯
many,
安
many
那、
other
新泽
places.
西等地，
But these are incredible
对这
men
些
and women, and they worked around the clock. And the
表
people
现
of
优
New
秀的
York are
人
very
们，我
happy.
们感
Governor
谢
Cuomo expressed
表示
his
感谢。
thanks, which we appreciate. But these are, I mean, there's nobody could have done a
除
job
他
like
们
that.
以外，
Most people have never seen anything
不会
like it.
有其他
The
人能做
deployment of
出
rapid
色的工
testing
作。
will vastly
我
accelerate our
们也
ability to
在
monitor,
继
track,
续
contain, and ultimately
观
defeat the
测和
virus.
追
We will
踪这
defeat the
些病毒
virus.
的传
It will
播，
also allow us to
并且
test
保护我们的
doctors,
医护
nurses, and
人
other
员。
healthcare workers immediately and enable
他们
us
出色
to
的
act
工作
quickly and
使
aggressively
得
to shut down
我
the
们得
spread
以
of the
阻
virus so
止疫
important
情
in
传
critical
染。
facilities like hospitals and nursing homes.
我们要保证
And we will ensure that we can give cities and states the best information to
大家保持
guide local
沟通。
decision makers and making.
我必须指
I
出，
want to point out that the
氯喹这种
hydroxychloroquine
药，
is being administered to
我们已
1,100
经分发给
patients,
1000多
people
位病
in New York,
患者，
along with the Z-Pak, which is
还有其他的药。
azithromycin. And it's very early
那
yet. It's
是
only
2天
it started 2
前
days ago.
开始的，
But we will
我
see
们
what
也看
happens. I want to
他
thank
们的效
Stephen
果
Hahn,
如
who's
何，也感谢
a great
Steve Hahn
doctor,
医生，他们
left
做了
one
出
of the
色的
best
工作，
jobs in our country, running
并且
an incredible
在
hospital in Texas.
他
And
们
he's
是
the head
他
of the
是
FDA, and Stephen got
食
approval
品
for
粮
that
药物局
so
的
fast. Let's see how it works.
领导。
It may, it may not, but
所以我们也
we
许
may have some
会看
incredible
到
results.
非
We're going to
常
know soon. So
好
it's
的结
tested.
果。
It's being tested on
现在
1,100 people in New York. The FDA is also allowing the emergency use of a
也在
blood-related therapy called
看有
convalescent
关
plasma
血清方面
as
的
an
治疗
experimental
法，
treatment for
这是
seriously
给
ill
非
patients.
常
This treatment involves taking blood
重
plasma
症
from
的患
patients
者，那
who
是
have
对
already
已经
recovered from the
治愈
virus.
的
So
人的
they
血清里
recovered,
面的
they're
抗
strong,
体
something
提炼
was
出
good
来，
in them that worked.
来帮助那些重症患
And
者。
so we take the plasma from those people that have recovered
因
so
为
well,
他们
meaning their plasma
如
is
果能
rich
够
in
迅速
antibodies
恢复
against
的
the
话，
virus,
那就说明
and
这些
transfusing it into sick
患者的
patients,
血
sick
清里
patients
的
very,
抗体
very powerfully. So sick patients
很有
will
效，那就是把这
be
个血清
transfused with the
带有抗体
blood
的血
taken
清
to
再
boost their immune
输给
system.
那
We'll see
些
what
重症
happens.
患
And
者。
we're having some early results that
我
are
们正
good,
在
but
等
we
待
will see,
结
and
果，
that's going, I think, very
正在测
rapidly.
试
Again, we
这
got
一治疗
approvals
方
in
案。
really very quick
我
time.
们也在同
We're
时
also
看
looking at an approval for the sterilization of
还有
masks. I
有
kept
关
saying to
口
myself,
罩
I'd see some of the masks are very complex.
感
We're
谢上帝，
delivering
我们
millions, by the
输
way,
送了几
millions.
百万副口
But I kept
罩。
saying, why aren't they
我
able
们
to
在
use
看能不
that
能有
mask a
效的
second,
消
third, fourth
毒，
time?
对这些口罩进行
And,
消毒，这样我们可以重
Mike
复使
DeWine,
用
the
这些
great
口
governor of
罩。
Ohio, called me. They have a company that is in the final process of getting approval for the sterilization of
所以
masks.
我们正在
And in
看
some
能不能
cases,
批准
depending
这
on the
项
mask,
有关
some of
口
these
罩
masks
消
are
毒的
very strong, very powerful, very strong material. They're able to
选项。那
sterilize the
我
mask
们要
up to
选
20 times. So that's, I guess, like getting
我们要
20
选择耐用
masks.
的材料，这样可以
And
重复使用
so we
高
worked
达
on that
20
as soon
次。
as I heard from Mike today. I got involved, and the FDA is now involved, and we're trying to get a fast approval for the sterilization of masks. That would be a tremendous
这会
difference. It would be
给
really
我们提
helpful.
供很多
Well, much of
帮助。
the research
那
has to
同
be
时，
done. We have a
研
lot of
究正
research
在
left
进
to
行
do.
有
Obviously,
关
this
新的治疗
treatment
方案，
on plasma has shown
在其他
promising
国家
results in
显
other
示有效
countries.
的
We're
方
in
案。
communication with other countries
我们与他们
and
保
very
持
strong
沟，
communications, and
保
they're
持
very
沟
reliant
通。
on us in just about all cases.
我们有全世
We
界
have the
最棒
greatest
的
people in
研
the
究
world. They're very,
学
very
者，
anxious to find out how we're doing on our
在
different things,
尝试
whether
不同的
it's a
治疗
cure
方
or
案。
whether it's really anything having to do with
我们就是要
getting
帮助
people
人
better.
们康复。
We have some interesting things will be announced, I
接
think,
下来
over the
几周
next
会有
few weeks, but
很
we'll
多
see
振
what
奋人
happens.
心
They're
的
being
消
tested right
息。
now. The vaccines are moving along very rapidly. The
此外，我们也在
vaccines are
看疫苗。
an answer, but I'd like to see if we could do
我
something
们也是当然要
therapeutically so
看
that we could take care of the people
治
that
疗。
are already sick. And we're working on that at a level that people would be amazed. These are incredible people. They don't stop.
这些
This
治疗的
method
方案
also has been used for more than a century, and that's the
有
blood-related
有那个
therapy.
100
For
年
more
之
than a
久的
century
历
to
史
fight off
的
infectious
有关
diseases, so it's not
血液方面的治
unusual.
疗
Our
方
level
案。
of complexity
但是
has
这种
changed, but it's a
概
concept
念
that's been used for a long time,
是很
including
成熟
during the
的。
Spanish flu epidemic. And that was really a pandemic of proportions like
如今我们面
frankly
对全
nobody's seen
球
until
疫情，
what we're facing now. That was in 1918. You know what the
当年
result of that was?
1819
Probably from 75 to
的
100
全
million
球
people
大瘟疫，
were killed.
致许多
And
人死
also
亡。
other viruses like the one in this outbreak. This is a
这是
very
一个
tough one. This is a
很
tough one because it spread so quickly.
糟糕的瘟疫，因为
Like
它
nothing
传
we've
播
seen.
很
It spreads so
快，
easily, so
并
quickly.
且容易
We're
传播。
unleashing every tool in our nation's vast
我们
arsenal,
用了很多
economic, if
子
you look,
弹来
medical and scientific,
从各
military,
方面对
homeland
抗这个疫
security
情，包括经
is
济、
working very, very hard with all of them in order to
国
vanquish the
防制
virus.
造。
As you know,
治疗
every level of
医学等
government,
等
state, local,
来
and federal
战
is
胜这
working
个
nonstop to obtain more
疫情。
personal protective equipment for frontline
那些
workers.
奋
We're
战在前线的
delivering vast
医护
orders of
人员。
this material. I'm going to ask a couple of the
等
people
下
here
有
to join
其
me
他
that
领域的人来
both make it and deliver it. Joining us today are
加
the
入我
leaders
们。
of America's largest distributors of
就
pharmaceuticals
是
and
今
medical
天的
equipment,
这
including
个
McKesson,
记者
Cardinal
会。
Health, Henry Schein, Owens
还
and
有
Minor,
很
Medline,
多
FedEx, and UPS. We just
物
concluded
流
a
系
very
统
productive meeting about ways
有
to
关
keep
这
our
个
supply chains and delivery systems moving at top speed. And maybe I'd
运
like
输
to just
业
ask
等
for
等。
a couple of minutes for Mike Kaufman to come up, and maybe Ed
所以我们还
Paseka.
有
Mike is with Cardinal, and
有
Ed
其
is
他人
Owen
会
and
加
Minor.
入，他们会
But
来说
I
话。
appreciate, and if anybody else has anything,
希
please
望
come up. But if you
你
could
们
come
到
up,
前
Mike
面
for a
来
second
讲
and
话。
Ed for a second, just you
然
could
后
maybe say what you told me
你
before
就可
when we
以
had the
重
meeting.
复
Thank
你
you.
刚才对我说的话。
Thank you, Mr.
感谢总
President,
统
and thanks for
感
your
谢你
leadership
的
on this.
领导
Because of that leadership,
我们
we have
现在
really
已经看
seen
到
the government agencies working with industry like
政
no
府
time
以前所
before.
未有的
We've
速
seen
度和效率
HHS,
与
FEMA,
私营
the
企业
CDC
合
work
作，
incredibly
特别
effectively
是
with
那
all of the
些
distributors
物流
and all of the
运
distributors
输系
working
统
together for the good
我
of the
们
people. And all of us
非常
have
专
been
注
so
于
focused on making sure that
帮
we
助我
take
们
care
的
of
顾
our
客，
customers because our customers
因为我们
are the
的
ones that are
顾
taking care
客
of our
就
patients
是
every day.
帮
And
助
we need to
病
do
患的人。
everything we can to make things good for them.
非
And
常
so it's been great
感
to see
激
how
我们
well
看到
all these government
目
agencies
前
have been
运
coordinating
行
together
良
with us.
好，谢
Thank you.
谢。下一位，
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me
我首
first
先
start
要
by
感
thanking the
激
administration for all the
我们
support
的
you have
政
provided to
府
the
来对
industry.
我们
And one of the things we
的
did, we did
帮
hear
助
the challenge, and
我
starting
们
in January,
1
we
月
ramped up our
份
production in the Americas, including our facility in North Carolina,
现在
where we
我
are now
们
manufacturing an additional
正在
40 to
制
50 million
造
masks
大
per
量
month
的
to get
口
into the
罩，
U.S.
4、
healthcare
5
system.
万副口
We
罩
talked
每
a
个
little
月
about this in the
可以
pre-meeting, and
生
one of the
产出
issues
来
we're。struggling with is the demand increase. Used an anecdotal
我们
example of one hospital in New
知
York
道
that traditionally uses roughly 10
每
to
一
20,000
个
masks a week are now
我
using
们
2to
看的非
300,000
常
masks a
大
week.
量的
So you multiply that
口
times
罩
the
被
entire,
每
the
个
entire
医
U.S.,
院
let alone the
需
same
求，
demand outside of the U.S. That's part of the issue we're running into.
所
Is
以
even
我
with a
们
significant ramp up in supply,
必
there's
须
still
应
that
对
demand
这
that
些
is,
大
that
量
is
的
much
需
greater
求。
than that
感
supply.
谢
Thank you.
总统
And I
说，
bring
我
that
们把
up
这个
because
提
when we
起，就是我们
discussed
刚才已经讨
back
论
in a
过，
room, we were in a conference room, very nice
就
one.
在内
actually, it's
阁
called the
会
cabinet
议
room.
里，
That statement was made that
他
they've
们
been delivering
每
for
年
years
这
10
个
to
口罩制造
20,000
厂
masks. Okay, it's a New York hospital. It's packed all the time. How do you go from
如何
10
一
to
下
20 to 300,000? 10 to
大量
20,000
增产
masks to 300,000,
30万。
even though this is different.
当
Something's
然，
going
我
on,
们
and you ought to look into it as reporters. Where are the masks
一
going?
下
Are they going out the
子
back door? How do you go from
所以
10,000
一
to
般的需求量怎么
300,000?
从1
And
万
we have that in a lot
的
of different places. So somebody should probably look into
从
that.
1
'cause I
万的
just
口
don't see
罩
from
一下
a
子
practical
被
standpoint how that's
用掉了30，
possible
买
to
掉
go
了
from that to
30
that.
万
And
的
we
口
have that
罩，所以
happening
他们
in
去哪
numerous
里了？
places. Not to that extent. That was the highest
他
number
说
I've
这
heard.
肯
That's
定
the
是
highest number
你
you've seen, I
见
would
过
imagine.
的
right?
最高需求
But
量。
this man makes them and delivers them to a lot of
所以
hospitals.
他
He knows the
就是口
system better than
口罩
anybody.
制
And I
造
think
商，
you
他
were
们
more
肯定
surprised
对
than I
那
was when you
些
saw that number. So thank you very much.
医
I
疗
hope I didn't
系
get
统
any of
非
your
常了
clients in
解。
trouble.
那
But
我
it could
希
be that
望
they are in trouble. So they have to look at that in New York. FEMA is working with these companies to
了解这个
launch
情况哈，就运
Project
用
Airbridge
口罩需求情
to
况。
expedite the
那
movement
紧
of
急事
critical
务署
supplies
也
from
在积极
other
行动。
countries to the United States. The
许
first
多
flight arrived at JFK Airport, New York, this morning, filled with 80 tons
航
of
班
personal
都给
protective
我们
equipment,
送来了很多
including
个人保护
130,000 N95 respirators.
用品。
Those are the ones that we were talking about before. 1.8 million
上
face masks
有
and
100多
gowns,
万的口罩
10.3 million
等等
gloves, and many other things.
是
Millions and millions of
几
different
百
items.
上百
FEMA
万的
has
这些
scheduled 19 additional
物
flights
资。
and is adding more daily. We hope to have
我们现在
about
有
50
50
flights.
多
We're going to
个
have,
航
I think,
班都
including the one
会
that came in today, we're up
向我
at
们来
51
输
flights
送
with
这
these
些
massive
紧急物
planes
资
from。the different
非
companies.
常
It was
感
so nice
谢
to be here
在
today. Would you
座
like to
的
say something on
好
behalf?
几
Please
家
come
公
up.
司，
Thank you.
都是与紧急物资有关的。好，下一位。
Thank you,
感谢
Mr.
您
President, for
的
the
卓
incredible
越
leadership.
领
I
导
will。share with you that UPS is really proud to be part of this
感谢。
effort. Vice President Pence and I had the opportunity to speak before,
我
and
们
the
一
way
定
we're
会
going to win this war
赢得
is
这
with
场
great
战斗。
logistics, and UPS is going to be part
我
of
们
that
有
effort. We have a
很
big
多
brown
的
army, 495,000
UPS
UPSers across the country that are ready to
的
deliver.
工人，
We're bringing
我
in the
们
supplies
为
from
全
anywhere
世界
around the
各
world
地
as
输
fast as we
送
can
所需
so
的
that
物
they can
资。
serve the communities
我
that
们
need them
非
most.
常
We're proud to be partnering
自
with
豪
the
能
states as
够
well
与
because we know that
政
in
府合
partnership
作。
with those states, we can deliver what is needed
感谢
everywhere. So
总统
thank you,
先
Mr.
生。
President.
Thank you very much. Great
Thank
job
you.
you're doing. Please. Thank you very much.
感谢总统学
Thank you,
生。
Mr. President. I would certainly like to echo my colleagues'
我必须同意我的同事所说的， 来
many of the government
赞
agencies
赏这
and the
个
private market. The
协
distributors
作
represented here today has
精
been
神。
incredible, has been
我
increasing
们
and
看
ramping up over
到
the
需
past
求量
weeks.
大增。
Today's first delivery of Operation Air Bridge, I think, is the first
那我们
evidence
现
that
在
it's
看
working.
看
The 51
很
flights you
多
referenced, we're
正在
excited about. We look to
步入
build
正
upon
轨。
that. So I would echo my thanks for your
所以我非
leadership
常感
and
谢
certainly
我
to
们
the
的员
staffs
工，感谢
for the
合
terrific
作，
partnership and the commitment to
来
protect
保
the
护
people
我
we
们
think about
的
most often, which are the people on the front
那
lines
些
providing
战斗在
care.
一线
And maybe
的
just a quick word of
人
thanks
员
on behalf of all the CEOs here
我
to our
们
teams that continue to show up in
的
warehouses across the
员
country,
工
in
不断
pharmacies
的
across
把
the
物资
country, and do their jobs
运
to
送
keep
到
the
各
supply
地
chain
的
going.
仓库，
The supply chain is
我们
working. It's resilient. Supply is a challenge.
会
We're
克
tackling
服
that.
困难。
Thank you very much. Great job.
感谢总统
Thank
先
you.
生，
Thank you, Mr. President, and
感
thanks
谢
to
紧急事务
FEMA
署
and HHS. I think great leadership
以及
is really
大
working
家的
well. The
卓
demand
越
has
领导，
skyrocketed, and we're doing a lot of
感谢
things
你
to
们
bring in more
提供
masks, more other protective apparel. We are
口
involved in
罩和其他
reprocessing
保护
masks,
设
and
备。
we've already started at about 100,000
我
masks
们
per day,
希望扩大
and
生
we hope
产
to expand from there.
我们
So we're
对
quite
此
optimistic
非
about it.
常的乐观
Thank，
能够更多的生
Anybody
产。
else, if you want? Yes, please. You're doing such a great job. We have to let
谢
others
谢
if they want.
总统先
Thank
生
you. Thank you, Mr.
我
President. We
非
appreciate
常
the
感
opportunity
谢
to work
能
with your
与本届
administration
政
on a
府
lot
合
of collaborative
作。
fronts. Number
开
one,
始
we've all
跟他
talked
在
about
讲
PE
那个
products. That's
PE
critical. It's
的
not just to the hospitals. That's a must. But it's really to all
产
healthcare
品，这
providers
是
out there working on
对
the front line.
前
So our commitment is there to get it to the
前线的
hotspots
医护人
and
非
get it to
常
the care providers
重
that are
要。
taking care of those patients. It's absolutely
其
key.
次，
Second, we talked
我
in there
们
about
要
buying in America
买
and
美
getting
国产
resources
品。
back here and manufacturing in America.
我
That is
们
critical. A lesson to be learned from where we are. And lastly, we're proud that we introduced
还
a
要
test. We need to
提供
get some
更
more
多
tests
的
out
测
there
试
in a rapid form. We're excited about that. We've
我
worked with your
们
administration
有
very
一
closely
些
in the
很
FDA.
快
We're
就
very
会
grateful
得
for
到
that because it's a
FDA 的
quick,
批
rapid
准，
antibody test that
非常
needed as well. So
感
we're really
激
proud to
能
work with
与
your administration.
政府
All
合
going
作
well.。Thanks so much.
Thank you.
谢谢大家，你
So
们
thank you all very
做
much
得
and for
非
the
常
great
棒
job
的
you're
工作
doing. It's really incredible, frankly.
许多
Many of the states
州
are
已
stocked
经
up.
得
Some
到
of
了
them don't
充
admit
足
it,
的
but
物
they
资。
we have sent just so much, so many things to them, and
包括呼吸
including
机
ventilators. You know, there's a question as to hoarding of ventilators. Some
一些独立
hospitals
的
and
医院
independent hospitals, and some
还有很多的
hospital
那
chains,
个
as we call them, they
医
are
疗
holding ventilators. They don't want to let them up. We need them for
医
certain
院系
areas
统，他
where
们
there's
有
big
多余的
problems.，
但是他们
Can't hold them
好
if
像不
they
愿
think there
意
might
松
be a
手
problem weeks down the
或
road.
者分享，
So we've delivered a lot,
所以
and
我
this group
们
has been really
做了
fantastic. We want to
出
thank
色的工作，并且跟
UPS and
UPS 和
FedEx.
FedEx 这些
In particular,
运
you've
输
gone
的
absolutely out of your way, so we appreciate everything you've done and
产业
delivered.
合作。
The federal government continues
我
to
们
mobilize
充
every
分利用我
resource to
们
make sure
已有
our
的
frontline
资
doctors
源
and
来
nurses have the equipment needed
挽
to
救
save
美国人的
American
生
lives.
命。
Yesterday, I visited
在
Naval Station
Norfolk
Norfolk as the
在我们
USNS
这个
Comfort
海军医
departed
疗船
for
安
New
慰
York 3
号
weeks ahead of schedule,
已经离
fully
开，
loaded with 12
可以
operating
提
rooms,
供
1,000
超过
hospital beds, and
1000
hundreds
的
of
病床。
the best doctors, nurses, and medical professionals anywhere in the
那里
United States
有
Navy,
出
anywhere
色
frankly in the
的
United States.
海军医院，
It was an incredible thing to
医生。
see. Most of you saw that on television as it was leaving. It
所以
left
我们等于
literally
提
3
前
weeks early. It
3
was
周
under
完成了这个
maintenance,
准
and
备，
they got the
所以
maintenance
这
done
个
very
海
quickly. 医 They worked
疗
round the
船
clock,
已
as
经
many of the people have, and it was a great sight.
可
Additionally,
以
two
帮
of the
助
country's
纽约。
largest health insurers, Humana
我
and
们
Cigna,
现在
are announcing that they will waive
有那个医疗
copays, which is a big deal for anybody that understands insurance.
系
They
统
don't
已
waive
经
copays too
说
easily,
他
but
们
we've
不
asked them
需
to
要
do it.
来
They've done it.
减
Co-insurance
少
and
付款，
deductibles for the
是为了这个
coronavirus
检测
treatments
等。
to help ease the financial burden on American families during this pandemic.
所以
So
他们
they're waiving copays, co-insurance,
就去
and
除了一切的费
deductibles.
用，为了检
I
测。
don't think anyone's heard of that
所
one. Have
以
you heard of that one before?
我
I
想
haven't
感
had.
谢这
I want to
些
thank them.
公
Great
司。
companies. Today I spoke with Wolfgang Puck. Wolfgang Puck is a
这个
great
Wolfgang
restaurateur,
Puck
as
是
you
一
know,
个
as
很
is
棒
Jean
的
George and Thomas
餐
Keller
饮
and
连锁。
Daniel Baloo and other
还有
leaders in the
其他
restaurant
的
business,
餐饮
which
业，
has been probably one of the
受到
hardest hit
重创。
industries. I've directed my staff to use
我
any and
们
all
这
authority
届
available
政
to
府
give
会
restaurants,
尽所
bars,
能帮
clubs,
助
incentives
这
to
些
stay
餐
open.
馆
You're going to
让
lose all
他
these
们
restaurants,
能
and they're not
够
going to make it
维
back.
持
They
下
have to
去
get。going.
所以我
So
将做
what
的
I'm doing is
是
I'm going to tell
告诉财政部
Secretary
长姆努钦，
Mnuchin and also our
还有
great
我们
Secretary
的
of Labor.
人
You
力
know
资
very
源部
well
长、
to immediately start
劳工部长
looking into the
让他们
restoring
能
of
够
deductibility of meals and entertainment costs for
为
corporations
通过
that set the
餐饮
restaurant
业来
business back a
向
lot
有关
when
人
it
员提
was
供
done originally and
饮
then
食，
done
这样
not
可
so long
以
ago.
帮助餐饮
And
业
we're going to go to
维持运营。
deductibility so that companies can send people to restaurants.
我觉得
I
他
think
们
it'll have a
能
tremendous impact and maybe keep them
会
open. I mean, don't forget, some are
有
closing right
很多
now,
正面的
despite the fact that they could be open in the not too distant future. We expect that, but there are some that aren't going to be able to
正
get
面的影
open.
响，但是
And
我
we
必须
want to
承认有
make
一
sure
些
they
餐
do.
饮
So
业可
we're
能
going
不会
to
再重
look
开
at
了。
the restoration, restoring the deductibility of meals
所以
and
我们的
entertainment
一
costs
些
to corporations so that corporations can send people to restaurants and take a deduction on it like they
公
did
司
in the old
等可
days.
以
That was when
去
restaurants were
得
doing
到
really well. The financial
有
relief bill I
优
signed
惠
on
的
Friday provided historic relief for American workers and small businesses and includes $350 billion in job
餐饮业
restoration
餐
and
饮业
retention.
里得到
So if you look at job
我们
retention
也提
loans
供
for small businesses,
小
that's a big
企业
deal
的
with
保
loan
护
forgiveness available for businesses that continue paying the workers.
贷
So it's
款
$350 billion.
还有保
Job
护
retention loans for small businesses
工作
with loan
的
forgiveness
贷款
available for，
所以
businesses that
他们可
continue
以
paying
继
workers. I
续
mean, how
给
about
员
that?
工发工资。虽然
$300
这些
billion
小
in
企业
direct
没有
cash
开门
payments are，being sent to every American
那
citizen
那
earning less
些
than
低于
$99,000
收
per year,
入99000的
$3,400
人，
for the
那
typical
4口
family
之
of four.
家
So they'll
可
be
以
getting
得
a check
到
for $3,400
$3400
for the typical
每个
family of
月
four. Approximately $250 billion
并且
in expanded unemployment benefits. Under this
加
plan, the average worker
失业的
who
补
has lost his
助
or her job will
他
receive
们可以拿到
100% of their
100%
salary
的
for
工
up
资，
to
持
4
续
full
4月
months.
之久。
The bill provides
这
for these
些
unemployment checks to be delivered through the existing state unemployment
这些钱
systems,
就
not
是
us,
通过
state. And I
州
was
政
opposed to
府
this
直
method
接
because
送到
many of
他
the
们
states
的
have very
汇入他们的
antiquated
银
computer
行。
systems that are 45 years old, and they're not prepared to handle
那
this kind
州
of
政府可能
distribution, this
他
kind
们
of
还没
money
有准备
coming
好
in so quickly.
接受如此
They're not set up for that, and
大量的这些
I didn't want to do
经
it,
济
but our opponents
这
wanted
些
it.
资助哈，经
So
过他
we
们之
did
手
it, and
送
if they
到
don't
这
get
个
their money
美国
fast,
人
I'm
民
going
家
to
庭手
ask
中。
that we
我
convene
们也
federal government, that we come back to Congress, and we'll do
告诉我们，
something where we take care of it, because we
如果
can take
地
care
方
of it
政府
very easily and
无法
quickly, and I said that. But a lot of these
处理
systems
这
are
么
so
大
old
量
and so
的分
antiquated at the
发
state level that they're
钱
going
的
to have the
话，
money,
我
they're going to get the
们
money very quickly, but
联
they're
邦
not
也
going
可
to
以
be able
接
to
受这件
distribute it.
事。
So remember what I said, and
我
we
们
will
必须
we have to call
让
Congress back or find some other way of
国
delivery of the
会
money.
重新讨论
Throughout this
这个
great
分发钱
national
的方
struggle, the
式，
American
可以
people
快速
have
完成。
embodied the
我
unrivaled
们还要
patriotism and willpower
用我们
that has led
的
America to
毅
conquer
力
every
和
challenge,
决
every
心来
single
战
one
胜
in
一
our
切。
nation's history. More than 90% of Americans say they are
美国
staying
人
home as
正
much
尽
as
量待
possible,
在家，
putting their lives, their
并且
careers, their educations, and their
暂停
dreams
了
on
他们的
hold
那些梦
out of
想
devotion
等
to
等。
their fellow
但是
citizens
他们做了这
and to
一
their
些
country.，
还有保
Social
持距离
distancing.
等等，都是
That's
为
the
了
way
我们
you
国
win.
家的。
These shared
利益。
sacrifices are pulling our nation together like never
我
before.
们现在家
Family
庭
bonds are
的团
strengthening.
结，
Neighbors
还
are
有
looking
邻里
after
相
neighbors.
助，
It's incredible. I'm seeing, you're seeing, everybody's seeing what's happening.
并且
Communities are rallying for the cause,
社区
and all
也团
divisions
结
are
起
fading
来。
away. The Americans of
无
every
论背
background are
景，我们都
uniting
团结一致。
to help our
这个
nation
在这
in this
艰
hour
难
of
时
need.
刻，
It's up to 151
所以我们的
countries. So
国
when we say
家
our nation,
包
our
括全
nation
世
and the
界，
world, when you think of it, 151
想想有150个国
countries.
家
Somebody
受
said
到
to me
疫情
today
影
that
响，
wasn't in this particular world. They didn't
很
know
多人
that
还
we
不
had
知
that
道
many
世界
countries.
上有这么多国家。
151 countries, that's something.
那有一
And
些
some
国
are
家
struggling
是
at a level
比
that
较
nobody would
挣
have
扎
believed
的，
possible. If you look at Italy, if you look at
法
France
国
is having big problems. Spain is
西班牙
having incredible problems.
他们都
Something we did very well is when
比
we
较
stopped the inflow from
在糟糕
China
的
at a very
情
early
况
level. That was
还有
a good thing to do,
中
great
国也
thing to
面
do. We
临
would have had
挑战
thousands and thousands of more deaths.
我们
And we also
停
stopped
止
the
了欧
inflow
洲
from
来的航
Europe
班
at a very early level. But
或者游客
those things were very important,
这是非常
especially
重
the
要的，
initial
因为我
one,
们
because
之
we had
前
never
从
done
来
anything
没有
like it,
像
where we closed our borders
这样
to a
关
country
闭
like
了我们的
that.
边
The
境。
modeling put together by
我
Dr.
们
Birx
的
and Dr.
Fauci 医
Fauci
生
and
还
our
有
other
其他
top
的
healthcare I
专
mean,
业
we have, and these people are amazing, the healthcare experts who
专
in this
家们
country are the best in the world. They demonstrate that the
他们
mitigation
正
measures
在
we are putting in place may significantly reduce the number of new
提供
infections
有
and
效方
ultimately
案来
the
减
number
低
of
死亡率。
fatalities.
我
I
希望
want
美国人知
the
道
American
你
people
们的
to
无
know that your
私，
selfless,
你们
inspiring,
的
and valiant efforts
坚
are
持
saving
和努
countless
力，
lives.
你
You are making the
改变了
difference. The modeling estimates that the peak in
所
death
以这
rate is
个死
likely to
亡率
hit
的
in 2
高
weeks.
峰有可能
So,
在
I'll say it again.
2个星
The
期
peak,
后
the
到达。
highest point
就
of
想
death rate,
想象一
remember
下这
this,
个曲线，
is
所
likely
以
to hit in
2
2
个月
weeks.
之后，2个
Nothing
星期
would
之
be
后会
worse
到达。
than declaring victory
所以在我们取得
before the
胜利
victory
之
is
前，
won.
那
That
我
would
们
be
必
the
须
greatest
面对
loss
这
of
个
all.
牺牲
Therefore,
和
the next
生
2
命的
weeks, and
失
during this
丧。
period, it's very important that everyone
我希望大家
strongly follow
完
the
全遵守
guidelines,
这
have
些
to
规则，
follow
就是待
the
在家里，
guidelines that
减
our
少
great
接
vice
触，保持
president
距
holds
离
up a
等
lot.
等。
He's holding that up a lot. He believes in it so strongly.
因为我们做的越
The better
好，
you
每个人
do,
做
the
的越
faster
好，那这个
This whole
噩
nightmare
梦
will
就
end.
会越早结束。所以
Therefore,
我们
we
要
will be
延
extending
长
our
这个
guidelines
规
to
则
April 30th
到
to slow the
4月
spread.
底。
On Tuesday, we will be
4月份
finalizing these
我们
plans
会
and providing a summary of our findings, supporting data, and
更新
strategy
这个
to the American people.
规则，
So we'll be
所
having
以我们
lots of meetings in
在
between,
那之
but
前
we'll
会
be
有
having
很
a
多的
very
会议
important
来
statement
商
made
讨
on
细
Tuesday,
节。
probably Tuesday evening, on
所以
all
根
of
据
the
所有的
findings
数据
all of the data
和发现，
and the
我
reasons we're
们
doing
可
things the way we're
以
doing them.
有足
We
够
can
的理
expect
由
that by June
来
1st, we will
采
be
取
well on our
我
way
们
to
将采取的
recovery.
措
We
施
think。by June 1st, a lot of great things will
必
be
须要知
happening.
道，伟大
I
的
want every
事
citizen
情将要
in
发
our
生。
country to take heart and confidence
我
in the
们
fact that
有
we have the
世
best
界上
medical
最好
minds in the
的
world tackling this
医
disease.
学的
We have the best science, the best researchers, and the best talent anywhere working night and day to
医学
protect
人
your
员，
family and loved
我
ones
们
and to
的专家
overcome
日以
this
继夜的奋
pandemic.
斗，来保护大家
With
的
the
生命
grace。of God, we are rising to the occasion. We are proving that no
知
darkness can
道黑
overshadow
暗
the
永远不
eternal
能
light
战胜
of American
永恒
courage.
的光明。
We will win,
我们
and
一
when
定
we do,
会
we will
重振。
rebound with astonishing
当我
force
们
and speed. We
重
will be
返
stronger than ever, and
正
we
常
will
的
have
时
learned
候，
so
我们
much
一定
that
会
something like this can
比以前
never
更加
hurt us
强
to the
大。
extent it has, and the world
再次，
again.
再次
In our
危
present crisis, the
机时
strength of
刻，
our people
我们的
is our single most
力量
important asset, and together
团
we
结一
will
致
defeat
是非常重
this
要的。
invisible
我们
curse,
一定
this
会战胜这个
invisible
看不见的
enemy,
战，
and
敌人，
rise to
并且
incredible new heights.
达到
So
新
I
的
just
高
want to
度。
thank you all for
现在
being
我可
here.
以
and
回
we'll
答
take
你们
some
一些问
questions if
题
you'd。like. Yeah, please, Kelly.
Million cases in the United
还有
States
人
and deaths
说
could
预
exceed
测
100,000.
死亡可
Do
以
you
达到
accept
10
that
万。
assessment, and has that formed your
他
thinking
说
about
你在
extending these guidelines?
延长
And
这
you also
个
talked about New York.
规
Were
则
you suggesting
比
there
较
has
严
been
的规则。
inappropriate use of masks or improper conduct with supplies?
No, I want the people in New York
川
to
普
check
说，我要让纽
Governor
约
Cuomo
的人
Mayor
来
de Blasio that when a hospital that's getting
检查一
10,000
下
masks goes to 300,000
那他们
masks
这个
during the same period, and that's a rapid period, I would like them to check that because I hear
检
stories like that
让
all the
他们
time.
来
You know,
仔细的
we're delivering
看
millions and
他们的需
millions
求
of
量有
different
关
products, and
口罩在纽约。
all we do is hear that, can you get some more? But when you hear that, and I
刚
heard
才
that
我
from
听到
one of the great
那
companies
个
of
世
the
界上
world
最
that
棒的
doing
公
this,
司， 就是讲这
it's a
些
client.
需求量
And they're going from, you heard it, 10,000, 20,000 tops to
1
300,000.
万、2万，一下
And
子
that's a
变
hospital that's
成
always full. So I
30
think people should check that
更高
because
的
there's something going on. Whether it's not, I don't think it's hoarding. I think
30
it's
万
maybe worse
的
than
需求
hoarding.
量，我们要
But
查
check it
是
out. Check it
有
out.
人在
I don't know.
囤
I don't know. I
积
think
这
that's
些
for
货
other people
物
to。figure out. But you don't go from numbers like that. Now,
还
other
有其
equipment
他的物
likewise,
资
because we're delivering a lot of ventilators, and we're building,
我
by the way,
们
we're building and
不
buying.
光
And
在
we
制
have a
造，
lot
也
of
在购
ventilators
买。
that we're going
比
to
如
be
说呼吸机，
sending
我
out
们马
very
上就
soon.
会
We
分发
also
出
have right
去。
now in the stockpile almost
我们
10,000 ventilators that
有
we have to hold in
10
case of
万
emergency. We don't want
1
them
万的呼
going
吸
out,
机，
and
我
then
们要灵
Louisiana
活
has a
机动的
tremendous
分配。
problem, which we now know they do.
还
You
没
know,
有
all of a
分配
sudden
出
it
去，
came very quickly.
就根据
I
情
mean,
况灵活
Louisiana was
分
doing
配。
so fantastically well. Then all of a sudden it was a big rash of cases.
所以我们必
we
须
have
准
to be
备
prepared to
好，
move
可以把
the ventilators.
呼
Are very
吸
important
机
pieces of equipment. They're
快
very
速
expensive
分
and
发
they're
到最
very
需要的地区。
complex. It's like building a car. You know, these are
呼吸机是
expensive,
非常昂贵、
complicated, very
精密
complicated
的
pieces of
仪
equipment.
器。
So we now have
所以我们
10,000
有
in, and we inherited
10
a
万
system
的
which
备
was
用。
broken, just
我
like
们
I'll
当
never
初
forget the
继
day
承
when
的是一
a
个
general came and said, "Sir,
运
the
作
first
不
week
太
in
良好
office,
的机
we have
制。
no ammunition." That was on the military.
当
We've
年
now
我
rebuilt our
接
military,
手
stronger than it's ever
总
been.
统
We have so
的
much ammunition.
职位的时
You wouldn't
候，
believe it how much ammunition we have.
我们
But
的军队都
same
没有
thing here. We had a stockpile
完
that
全
was
的有
deficient.
效。
We had testing that was no good. We had a
所以我们
testing
都改变了
situation
这
that
一
just
些。
wasn't right. It was okay for very small cases,
但
but
是
it
很
was
多都已经
obsolete
过
and
时
it
了，
was
并
broken
且
and it was
是
only
不
good
再
for a
运
very
转良
small
好。所以我希
situation.
望
But
要
what I'd
做的
like to
是
do，is
我们
I'd
让
like to ask
Fauci 医
Dr.
生
Fauci to come
来
forward and
提供一些
discuss the
数
number,
据。
because I think the number is going to be a very
我
different number than
我
the
相
numbers
信
that
他
you
说
talked
的数
about.
据
Please,
跟
Doc,
你
you might
之
talk
前
about
听到的不太一样。好，谢谢总统先
Thank you,
生。
Mr. President. Yeah, the number I gave out
根
is
据
you
这
know,
个
based
模
on
型预
modeling,
测，
and
有
I think
很
it's
多
entirely conceivable that
我
if
们
we
知
do
道，如
not
果我们
mitigate
不采
to
取
the
措
extent that we're
施
trying to
来
do,
阻止我
that you，could
那
reach
就
that
会有
number.
大爆发。
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you could
所
make a
以
big
我们
soundbite about it,
必
but
须
the
知道
fact
这是
is
有
it's
可能的
possible.
大爆
What
发。
we're trying to do is
所以我
not
们
let
所
that
要
happen.
做
So
的
instead of
是
concentrating on the
阻止
upper
大
and the
爆发
lower,
的
we're
发
saying that
生
we're。trying to push it all the
但
way
你
down.
的第二
But
部
the
分的
second part
问
of your
题是
question
说，我
was
觉
yes,
得
we
那个
feel that the mitigation
我
that
们
we're doing
采取
right
这
now
种
is having
严
an
控
effect. It's
是
very difficult to
正
quantitate
在
it because you have two dynamic things
见到
going on
成
at the
效。
same time. You have the virus going
所
up
以我
and you have the
们就是
mitigation
在
trying to push it
减
down.
缓这个爆
But the
发。
decision to
但是就
prolong,
是
not
延缓
prolong,
它
but to
的发生。
extend this
直
mitigation
到
process
4月底，
until the
我
end of
觉得这
April,
是一
I
个
think was a
智慧的
wise
决定。
and prudent decision.
Burks 医
Dr.
生
Burks and
和
I
我
spent a considerable
看
amount
到
of
了
time going over all the
研
data,
究了所有的
why
数
we
据
felt this
我们的
was
结论
a
是这是最
best
好的方案。
choice of us, and the president accepted
而
it.
且
So, in direct answer to your question, the idea that
我们
we
有
may have these many
这
cases
些
played a role in our decision in trying to make sure that we don't do something
这些
prematurely and
数
pull
据
back
以
when
感
we
染
should
这
be
些数
pushing.
据，就是让我们知道我们做的决定是正确的。好，现在 Burks 医生，
So thank you. I mean, you all know
你
you've
见
all
到了
seen the
那些
models.
模
You've seen the
型预
models
测
from Imperial.
吗？
You've seen the models from Columbia. We've
我们
reviewed
看了
12
12种
different models.
模型，
And
然
then
后
we
我
went back to the drawing
们
board
来
over
到
the
设
last week or
计，
two and worked from the
从
ground up,
零开
utilizing
始。
actual reporting of cases. It's the
我
way we
们
built
当
the
年做了
HIV
这
model,
个
the TB model, the malaria model.
艾滋病的
And
这
when we
个模型
finished,，
当
the
我
other
们
group that was
完成
working
这
in
些，
parallel, which we didn't know about, HIME, and Chris Murray
当时
ended up at
我
the
们
same numbers. So if you go on his
有人
website,
就
you
做
can
这些
see
模
the
型。
concern that we had with the growing number
我们的
of
关注的
potential
就是有
fatalities.
可能的死
All of the
亡
flu
率，
models predicted anywhere between 1.6 and 2.2
所
million
以有
fatalities.
100万到
If we
200
did
万的
mitigate.
死
I think
亡
you
可
all knew those
能。
numbers.
如果我们
Some of
什
them
么都
predicted half of
不
the United
做
States，would would
那
get
还有
infected
人
and have
说
that
一
level
半
of
的美国人都
mortality.
会感染，如果
So
我
we
们什
worked
么
very
都不
hard
做。
together to really look at all of
所以
the
我们就
impacts
看
of the different
各
mitigations
种
that have been utilized around the
控
world
制
and
方
use that
法，
evidence base to really bring
然后
that
把
data and that evidence
这
to the
种
president to
建议
consider for extending
提
which is
教
not a
总
simple
统，
situation when you ask people to stay home for another 30 days.
所
And
以
so they have to know
要知
that
道
we
我
really
们
built
所
this
做
on
的
scientific
决
evidence
定
and
都
the
是基
potential
于
to
科
save
学
really
的
hundreds of
基础
thousands
之上。
of American lives. And we know that's a
感
huge
谢
sacrifice
大
for
家
everyone.
做出了这么
We
多
know
的
that it's
牺
a
牲，
sacrifice for every mother
让
and child and
孩
and
子
father
还
who's
有
also self-isolating. There are people that
很多
have to
人
go out to
从
work,
小孩
and
到
we
大
know the
人，那有的
compromises
人还
that
必
they're
须出
making.
门工作
But。it's all to protect not only Americans but the healthcare
医护
providers,
工作
the
者
healthcare
战斗在
providers
第
that
一
are on the
线，
front lines, and you've seen them, and you've
看
seen
到
how
对
difficult
他们来
this
说
has
是
been.
多么大的
And
挑
so
战
we're。really working. There will be a comprehensive piece presented
星
on
期
Tuesday
二
that
我
really
们
talks about
会
not only
提供
diagnosing
不光是
individuals
检
but
测，
also increasing
还
our
有
surveillance now that we have more test kits,
检
so that
测
we can really
试剂
stop
的，
and contain new infections. At the same time, we're really
并
dedicating
且
test kits still to the critical diagnosis so
提
people can
供
get
有
the
效治
treatment that
疗
they。want. And so that we can ensure as when
那
people
那
come to the
些
hospital that
来
they
到
know
医
that
院
the
的就
nurses
知
and the
道，
doctors and the equipment that they need will be there to serve
护
them.
士和医护
Because
工
together
作
as
人员会在那
Americans,
里
we're going
帮
to
助
bring
他
down
们
the
有
number
效
of
的
infections so we
治
don't have
疗他们。
2.2 million deaths or 1.6 million deaths, but really work
所
very
以我
hard to
们
keep this
极
to the
力
lowest
减
numbers we
低
possibly can.
死亡率。我必须重
I just
申，
want to reiterate, because a lot of people have
有
been asking,
人
well, what
常
would have
问我，
happened if
如
we
果
did
我什
nothing?
么我们什么都
Did
不做，
nothing.
会
We
发生
just
什
wrote
么？
it out. And I've been asking
我也
that
问了
question
同
to
样的
Tony
问
and Deborah,
题
and
给
they've been
Fauci
talking to me
和
about it for a long time. Other people
Deborah
have been asking
都
that
问了。
question. And I think
我
we got our
们
most
迄今
accurate
为
study
止，
today,
如
or
果
certainly most
最准确
comprehensive.
的
Think of the number,
预
2.2,
测就
potentially
是
2.2 million people if we did nothing. If we didn't do the distancing, if we
200
didn't
超
do
过
all of the
200万
things
的
that we're
人
doing.
会
And when you hear those
感染。
numbers, you start to realize that with the kind of work we went through last week with the $2.2
那我
trillion,
们
it no
批
longer
准
sounds
了
like a lot.
2.2万
So
亿
you're talking
的
about-
经济救助法。
When I heard the number today, first time I've heard that number,
所以
because I've been
我
asking the same question that some people have been asking, I felt even better about what we
对
did
我
last
们
week with the
提供了
$2.2
这些
trillion.
救助，
Because you're talking about a potential
我
of
感
up to
觉非常
2.2
好。
billion, and some people said it could even be higher than that. So you're talking about 2.2
若
million
是
deaths,
200万的死
2.2
亡，
million people from this.
超过200万的死亡
if we，could
如果
hold
什么事
that
都不
down
做的话，
as we're saying to 100,000, it's a horrible number. Maybe even less, but to 100,000. So we have between 100 and 200,000.
所以我们
We all together have done a very good
共
job.
同
But, 2.2
合作
up to 2.2
做了很多
million deaths,
有
and
效的
maybe
工
even
作。
beyond that. I'm feeling very good about what we did last week. Yes, please, go ahead, please.
总统先生，
Given that you're
你
extending these guidelines, was floating Easter a mistake, do you
颁
think?
布了这
And
些
does this,
规
you
则
can tell us why, and
那
then
你
just an
曾经提
aspiration.
过
We actually will
复
be
活节可
hitting
以重返
potentially,
正
this
常。
was with our meeting before,
总统
on Easter,
说
we probably,
我
but
们
that could be a peak,
那
that
只是
could be
给
a
大
peak
家的一个
period, that
鼓
could be
励
the peak,
那
sadly to say,
当
that could be the
时
peak number of
如
deaths
果
before it starts
在
coming down.
复活
No,
节
that
的
was
时候，那个
aspirational. We had a
正是那个高
an
发高死
aspiration
亡
of
时期，
Easter. But when you hear these kind of numbers and you hear the potential travesty,
所以
we
我
don't want
们
to
不
do
想
anything where, you know,
让
we
这
don't want to have
个
to spike up. We don't want to do it soon, and then all of a sudden you go down, you're coming down, and then you start going up again.
我们不
Because we
想让这
discussed that
个
could happen, and we don't want that to happen. We've gone through too much.
死亡率
So
在
that was an
之
aspirational
后
number. I
再
didn't say Easter.
大
I
幅
said it
提
would be a
升。
great thing if we could do it by Easter.
我们
And we know much
现
more
在
now
比
than we knew 2 or
两
3 weeks
三
ago.
个星期之前
Easter
的
should be
信
the
息
peak
更
number,
多。那
and
其
it
实
should
现
start
在
coming down,
来看，复
and
活
hopefully
节
very
是我
substantially from
们
that
死
point.
亡率的高发
Thank
期
you.，
然后会减
Please.
少。
OAN.
Jen Pellegrino with
谢谢。
OAN.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr.
你
President, your
的
approval ratings have
支
been the
持
highest
率
they've ever been,
前
as
所未
well
有
as
的
the
高。
ratings on your handling of the virus.
那
Yet
有
there are
一
some networks
些
that are saying they're debating whether or not to carry these briefings live. Do you think there's a link between the two?
媒体
Well,
说
I don't
是
know.
不
I
是
know
跟
that.
这个
Well, that's a nice question.
每
Thank
天
you
的这
very
个
much.
直播
Yeah,
疫
I
情
don't
发布
want
会有
high
关？
approval ratings for
总统
this. I
说
wish we could have
我们
our old
一
life
定
back. We had the
想
greatest
要让我
economy
们过去的
that
生活
we've ever had, and we didn't
重
have
新
death.
恢复。
We didn't have this. We didn't have this horrible
我们当时
this
疫
plague,
情
you
发
call it
生之
whatever you
前的
want,
经济是
the
相当
virus.
棒的，
But
我们
we're
努力
working
的
very
工
hard. That's all
作
I know.
非常
You
努
know, I
力。
see things, I see numbers.
其
They don't
实
matter to me.
我
What
对
matters to me
那
is that we
些
have a victory over this thing as soon as
支持率
possible.
并不
When
那
you
么
hear
关
that
心，我是
2.2
关
million
心如
people
何服务于
could have died if we
美
didn't go
国
through
人
all of
民。
this, and now the number will be, you
希
know,
望
a much
我
lower number.
们
Hopefully, it's
的
going to
能
be
够
the
把
numbers
死
that
亡
we're
率
talking
控
about.
制或感染率控
But
制
so
下
I
来。
appreciate it very much. But you know
我
what I want is I
最
want
终
our life
还是
back
希
again.
望
I want our country back. I want
最
the
终
world
希
back. I
望
want
我
the
们能
world to
够
get rid of
重
this. This again,
新恢复正
151
常。
countries. And we're going to do it. We're going to have a great victory. We're going to have a great victory. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, thanks. You mentioned it. I just want to make sure I was right. So Humana and Cigna are going to
Humana
waive for all
Cigna
costs for
是医
anybody
疗
that's got the coronavirus. They're going to take care of everything.
Well, that's what they said. I told you what they're going to take.
Right.
Copays in particular, that's a
医
big
疗
deal.
保险系统，他
Insurance
们
companies
要
don't do that, and I
去
appreciate
掉
it. Humana and Cigna, they should be getting a
免
lot of
除
credit
所
for
有
that.
的
Will there be other
就
companies?
是
I
They're
don't
just
know.
病
those
人
two?
要自掏
Well,
腰包的
those
那
two
部
are
分费
getting a
用
lot。of credit right
对
now
于
for
检
it,
测
and they should because it's something
其实
that
他
it's a lot
们
of money
真
they're
的
waiving,
是
and
免
so
除了很大一
we
笔
thank
钱
them.。Will there be other
我非
companies? I
常
wouldn't
感
be
激他们。
surprised.
Are you
There's
calling
great-
on them to
there's
do it,
great
sir?
spirit. I'll tell you
我
what,
当
yeah, I'd
然
love to
很
have
高
them do
兴
it.
他
Let
们
them waive
能
those
够
copays. There's a
免
great
除这
spirit in
些
this country
自
right
掏
now.
腰包费用。
I mean, I know insurance companies better than anybody. They just don't do that.
所以现在
But
有一
now
种
there's a spirit
精
like I
神
have not，
我
seen. I have never seen anything like it.
之前还没有看
Even
到
the，media is much
甚
more
至
fair.
连
I
这个
wouldn't say all of it,
媒
but
体
that's
都
okay.
比较
They
公
should
正
be fair because
起
they
来
should want this to end. This is
知道我们
this
是
is about
在
death.
面对这个
So
战胜
I want to
死
thank
亡。
Cigna and Humana. Thank you.
Will the federal
说
government
我
be
们的联邦
reimbursing
政
those
府
insurance companies, or is
会
this something they really are just doing out of their pocketbooks?
来
They
补
haven't
贴
asked
这
for
些
reimbursement, so I assume they're not. They
医
said
疗
they're
保
going to
险
waive
公
them.
司吗？
Waiving them doesn't mean we're going to waive them and get
总统
reimbursed.
说他们并没有要
And
求
second
补
question for you,
贴。
sir. First of the month is
知
3
道
days away.
有
I
关
know these cash payments are coming. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said today about 3
现
weeks they
金
should get there.
给每个家
For
庭
people that are worried about paying rent, I know
那
mortgages through
还有人
HUD is taken care of, but I'm just curious about rent. What should people be doing for the first
Well,
of the
they're going to
month?
be getting the
总
money.
统说
I will tell you, I think
我们
landlords
可
are
能
going to
要
take it
让
easy.
那
We may
个
put out a statement on that. I think a lot of people that are owed money are going to
对
take
于
it
租
easy.
房的人，
They
让
don't
那
sort of have
些
a choice. But a lot of concessions are made, just like the insurance companies. A
人
lot of
对于
concessions
这
are
个
being made that
房
wouldn't have
租
even
要
been thought of
宽容
3
一
weeks
点。
ago. Not even thought of.
所以
So
我们
a
看
lot
到
of really
很多
positive
正
things
面
are
的事
happening.
情在
Please,
发
behind you.
生。
Thank you, Mr. President.
昨
Yesterday,
天
why did you
你为什么
publicly
说
threaten
有关
quarantine
在
New York, New Jersey, parts
I
of
didn't
大
do
纽
that
约
at
地
all.
区
Read the
的
statement. Read the statement. Read what I said. I said we're going to look
The-
into possibly quarantine. I
那个
didn't say we're going to quarantine.
隔
I
离
looked at it as a possibility because a lot of our
仔细
professionals
读一
suggested
下，其实
quarantine.
我们
I said we're going to look
在
at
看
it. We
这个
then
隔
looked at
离
it.，
我们
You
仔
see?
细的看了一
Who
下
are
这
you
个
with
隔
Bloomberg,
离
right?
那个
I can't imagine that.
大
Let me
纽
just
约
tell
地
you, I didn't
区。
threaten it. I don't go around threatening. What happened is
我们
people, professionals,
看到
very good professionals, love the idea
那有
of
一些
doing
专家
that
们，他
because
们喜
that's
欢
sort of
这
the
个隔离
ultimate
那
in
3个
distancing.
州
You can't do.
纽
They
约、
didn't
新
want
泽
New
西
Yorkers
还
where
有
they're having a problem
康州吧。
necessarily going down to Florida where they have less of a problem.
那
So
隔
the
离他
concept
们
of quarantine was
提
thrown
议
out to
这
me.
个隔离，他们
Really
希
would
望
love
怎
to
么
do it. They
做？
would love to do it, and I thought
但
it
是我
was
们
too much to
审
do
查了一
because
下，
the
觉得
people
这
are
个
doing
有
a great
点
job with it. Also, it's
没
very
有
hard
必
to
要。
enforce.
But
Okay,
by
please,
speaking
thank
about
you.
it publicly, I mean,
那
by
你
speaking about it
当
publicly and letting
昨
it
天
be
你
known
公
that it's
开
a
的提到这
consideration, do
一
you think
些
that you maybe
有关
frightened some of the
隔
I
离
think
这
we
3
made
个
people
州
aware to stay in their
那
houses and do good. Now we did an advisory.
我们
It's a
当
strong
时是
advisory.
得
The
到了
governors are running the
非常
advisory,
那
the 3
个
governors, New York, New Jersey,
强烈的
Connecticut.
建议。
And I think we did a great thing. But
那我
all
昨
I
天
did
就
yesterday, as
是
you know, you can see it, you can read it, you can read, and you can see very simply that
其实
I
我
said
当时就是说
that we
我
are
们
looking
正
into
在
it, and
研
then
究这个方
before
案
the end of the evening,
但
substantially,
是
we decided to go with
之
the
后
advisory,
我
which
们
frankly
还
I liked
是
better from
没
the
有采
beginning.
取
Go
这样
ahead.
的
Thank you,
措施。
Mr. President. I have two questions. The first is,
你
you
反
said
复地
repeatedly
说
that you think that some of the
那
equipment
有
that
一
governors are
些设
requesting,
备
they don't actually need. You said
州长
New York might
反
need,
复
might
要
not
求
need
的那
30,000.
些
You said it
设备
on
可能他们
Sean
其实
Hannity's
并
Fox
不
News.
需
You
要那
said
么
You
多
know,
that you
why
might,
don't you
some,
people act? Let me ask you.
You said
why
some
don't you
states-
act?
那
Why
总
don't
统
you act
说
in a
你
little
能不
more
能
positive? It's always trying to
My
get
question to you is-
get you.
正能量
And
一
you know what?
些？
That's why nobody trusts the media anymore.
My
That's
question
why
asking you,
people,
how is that going to
excuse
impact?
me, you didn't hear me. That's why you used to work for the Times and now you work for somebody else. Look, let me
让
tell
我
you
告诉
something.
你，让我们彼此都
Don't
Mr.
be
President, my
threatening.
question
Don't be
is-
threatening.
仁慈一
Be
点
nice.。Go
My
ahead.
question is, how is that going to impact
他说
how you
你
fill these orders for
你这样
ventilators
说
or for
他
masks?
们
Your
It's not gonna
views that
impact.
you're not going to, it's not going to
We're
impact you at
producing
all.
tremendous
总统
numbers
说
of ventilators. We're doing a great
我
job
们
on
正在
it.
尽
Mike
量
Pence, our
提
vice
供
president,
大
has
量
headed
的
up the
呼吸
task
机。
force, which has been incredible, the job they've done.
我
We have
们
everybody in the
白
White
宫
House
每一
working
位
on it.
人
We
都
have
在
everybody in the
为此努
country is
力，
working
包
on this
括
in one way or the other.
美国
The
的
fact
每一
is,
位
we've done a
人
great
人
job
民
of delivering. You've seen the biggest people
都
in the
全力
business.
以
I mean,
赴
there's
哈。
nobody even close to this group of people. We had a meeting at 3 o'clock. It lasted for a long time. It was a great meeting with the generals
我们
and with everybody else, and they
很
have
多
done a
人
fantastic
都
job.
在努力，
I'm
并
just
且
saying
做了
this.
出色的
If
工
they're
作。
holding, let me give you one
让
example.
我给
We
你
sent
一个
thousands
例
of
子，
generators to New
我
York.
们
They were put into
送了
a
几
warehouse, a
千
New
台
York
呼吸
warehouse
机给
that
纽
happened to
约，
be
结果
located,
他们
interestingly,
就
in
是
Edison,
放
New
在
Jersey. They
仓
were
库
given to
里。
New York, and we then went to other
然后我
places,
们又
also
给了几
giving
千台
thousands of
到
ventilators.
几个州
The
到
people in
其
New York
他
never
州。
distributed the
那
generators.
纽
We
约
said, why
并
didn't
没
you
有把
distribute
那
them?
个
Now,
之
you have
前
to
得到
understand,
几
they
千
have New
台
York people
发
working in those
到
warehouses. They knew
医
they
院
had them.
里。那我们问他
So we
为什
said,
么
why
他
didn't
没
you
有
distribute them? I hope they've
分发
distributed them
到
now,
医院呢
but maybe they
那
didn't
所
need
以
them
我
so
就
badly.
让我
But just so you know,
在
we're
想，
all,
他们
you,
是
me, everybody,
是不是
we're all
真
on
的
the
需要
same
这么
team.
多呼吸
You
机
know,？when
那
journalists
你是
get
一
up, and
位
you're a
很
journalist, a
棒
fine
的
journalist. When journalists
Directly
get
from
up
Sean Hannity.
and ask
记
questions
者，
that are
你
so
为什么要
threatening,
问
I was
这么
quoting you
不
directly
满
from
意
your
这
interview
个
with Sean Hannity.
take a look
敌
at
意的
my
问
interview.
题？
What I want to do is, if there is
那
something
有
wrong,
一
we
些
have to
事
get to the
情
bottom of it.
我们必
When I
须
hear
仔
face
细研
masks
究。
go from 10,000 to 300,000, and they constantly
那
need more, and the biggest man in the business is like
纽约州
shocked.
像纽
He
约
knows
州
all
这样，他们
about
好像一
the
直在
virus, by
不
the way.
断
He's not
的
surprised by that. He knows
要
all about
求
it.
多
He shouldn't be
的
surprised. He should say, well, that's
设
standard
备。
because this is really a very tough disease. This is really a very tough virus to handle. Okay,
Mr.
please, go
President, my
ahead.
second Mr. President, my second
Go ahead.
question. My
That's,
second
that's
question
enough.
is,
Thank you very much. Please, please. That's enough. That's enough. That's not fair to your other reporters. It's not fair. You had a long time, a long question.
如果我们
It's
有
your-
时
If we have
间，
time,
我
I'll get
再
back to you for
回
your
到
second
你
question.
的
Is
提
that okay?
问
All。right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on previous questions, you
之
said that
前
the peak
你
will hit in
讲
2 weeks.
我们，你
Well,
说
we don't know that, but we
2
think the
周
peak will hit.
后
You think it
这
will
样
hit in
Right.
2 weeks?
达
That
到
Can,
高
is
峰。
our two doctors
那
here.
你可不
can
可
you
以分
just
享
share
一
with
下，
us your understanding of how
让我们
bad
知
it will
道
be so the
会
American
多
people
糟
will
糕，
be
所以我们可以
prepared for
有
it?
思
Well,
想
I
准
can. I
备。
think I'll ask doctor and doctor. Maybe you could both come up and give your opinion on
总
that.
统
'cause that's
说：“
really-
那么
And I have another
让
question on
Okay,
Italy,
please.
please.
我们的医学专家来回答你的问题。”
Thank you. I mean, we have
Deborah
great concerns
说
when you look at the
如
model.
果
As I
看到
told you,
这
look
个
at the Chris Murray model,
模型
where
预
he
测，
shows a rapid
我们就可以
escalation,
看到
and
这
you
个
can
将
see
发
it
生。
happening with the people we're losing every day throughout America.
我们
And
可以
you
看
can
到
see
这个
it going up,
数
just
字
like
在增
cases.
加，
And we're starting
然
to
后
lose
同
people
时
at
有
the
人
same
死
rate,
亡。
and we have deep concerns about that. And I think
我们有
we're
很多
meeting and
的
we've had calls with the
会议
clinicians, and that has been
他们
extraordinarily
提供了非
helpful.
常
I think you're watching the alerts. I mean,
有
we
效的
have a
帮助。
different population than Italy or Spain. And so
因
because
此
of that, our doctors
我
and
们
our
的
nurses are getting information back really
一线的
quickly
医护
so
人
that they
员
can talk
也
to each other
给我
about
们
how
提
to
供
really
建议和
combat
数
this.
据，
We're seeing
告诉我们
things
如
here
何
that weren't
运作。
reported in other countries. And
我
so I really want to appreciate, I
知
know
道
doctors
医护
and
工
nurses
作
are
人
going
员他
full
们
out,
全力以
but they're
赴，
also taking the time and their 2 hours of
并且
sleep to write us about
他
what
们已
is
经告
happening.
诉我
And
们
you see the
他们预测
cardiovascular
的
disease and others.
情
So in
景
the。model, and there's a large confidence interval. And so
所以
it's
在个
anywhere
模
in
型
the
的预
model
测
between 80,000 and 160,000, maybe
有
even potentially 200,000
6
people
万甚
succumbing to
至
this. That's with mitigation.
20万。
In that model, they make full assumption that we continue doing
所以
exactly what we're doing, but
那
even
些
better in every
模
metro
型就是
area
说，如
with
果
a
我们
level
继
of
续做我
intensity
们这
because
正
we're
在做的
hoping
事情，
that the models are
所以我们希
not
望
completely right, that we can do better
这
than
个
what the
这些
predictions
模
are.
型并
But
不
we're
是
tracking
准
it
确
very
的，就
closely,
不
and
会
I
有
think
那
there's
么
people
糟糕
around the。United States really helping us. Scientists across the country have really given freely of their
所
time
以 全国的这些专业人员，他们都在帮助我们来建立这种模型。如果你看最近的数据，那我们发现我们跟欧洲的情况不太一样。所以我们要各方都照顾到，不光是孩子，还有那些年长有其他疾病的。所以我们的结论是说，我们必须继续这些严格的规定，甚至要做得更好，这样来保护大家。Fauci 说，
At the risk of offending
那在
my
那些
modeling colleagues,
在模型
models are good,
的预
but
测，
models often generate
当
the
然
kind
他
of
们有
anxious
这个预测
questions
是
that
很
you
好的，
ask.
但是一
Is
定
how
会
bad could this
引起
possibly
这种
get?
比较紧
And
张
as
的
I've
问
said many,
题。
many times, a model
所以
is as good as the assumptions
模
that you
型
put
只是
into the
基于
model.
这
And very
个
often,
预
many
估
of these assumptions are based
那
on
有
a
关于它
complexity
的
of
复杂
issues
性。
that aren't necessarily the same as
我们已
Dr.
经
Burke
看
said
到
from
每
one
个国
country
家
to the
都
other.
略有不
So when
同
you。give a model, you have the worst
那有的是
extreme, you have the best extreme. Often the worst extreme
数
means that you
字
don't do
有的
anything. You just,
很
as we
糟，
say,
有
let
的
it rip
很
and
好，
let
那
it
还
go.
有的就说
If
你
you
什
go
么
to
都
the
不
lower
做
end,
是
that
什么样
means you
子。
actually
还有一
mitigate
种
it
就是
really
你
to the
做
utmost.
竭尽
So what
全
I
力做所
like
有
to
的预
do
防
as
工
a
作会是什
scientist,
么
a
样子？
physician, a public health official,
当我们不要
is to
忽
not
视这
ignore
些
models, but
预
say, look at
测
the
模
data
型，
as it's evolving and
所以我
do
们要
everything
尽
you
力
possibly
来
can to mitigate that
严控。
instead of getting overly
所以我们
anxious
就可以
about the
避免那
extremes of the
个
model.
所有的这
Again,
种
not
极
to
端
push them
的
aside
这
completely,
种
but
结
the
果。
reason the president made the announcement today about
所以
going
我
to
们
the end of
说
April
准备
is
把这
because we
个
want to
目
make
前
sure
的这个
that we don't
控
prematurely
制
think we're
延
doing so
伸
great.
到
We may be,
4
but we
月
want to
底。
push it to the extreme. So take
所
that
以
with you,
有
and
这
maybe you'll be less
些
anxious. Okay.
信息，希望你会感觉更好。
pool, sir, you mentioned Italy.
Just to finish with, so
他们二位
what both
说
were，saying and what Dr.
我
Fauci
们
just brought up, we
并
don't
不
want
是
to
这
do
样。
well and then end a little bit early and have it start going up again
就是
because that would be
让这些病情有
a disaster.
反
Go ahead,
复。
please.
You mentioned Italy.
意
Italy
大
is
利
a
是
close ally
美
of the
国的
United
盟友
States.，
他
They
们
are
真
facing
正经历
catastrophic
艰难
times.
时刻
They。have been receiving help from
他们
countries like
从
Russia, China, even Cuba. Cuban
俄国、
doctors
中
have
国
been sent
甚
to
至古
Italy.
巴得到
Is the
帮
United
助。
States stepping in to
Yes,
help
we
a
are. In
close
fact,
ally
I
like
met
Italy?
我们
last night
昨
with our
晚
people.
有
We're
会
sending
议
them，
我
a lot of
们
different things that
把
we're not
多余
needing
的物
because
资
we're
将
obviously
送给
in
他
need of a
们，
lot also, and we're also
并
helping them
且在
monetarily. We are
财
helping
政上
Italy a
帮
lot.
助
We're
他
working
们。
very closely with Italy. We're working
我们
closely
也
with
同西
Spain
班牙
too,
合
which has
作
really。hit hard.
其实
And
我
we're
们
working
跟
with everybody. I spoke with
每个
Angela
国家
Merkel
都
the
合
other
作
day. Germany's
包
hit
括
hard.
德
Their
国。
mortality rate is different, I think, because they do more testing. But their mortality
德
rate is
国
much
的
different. Italy's mortality rate is very high.
死亡率很
So is
低
Spain.，
不像
But we're
意大
working
利
very
死亡
closely
率那
with
么
them.
高
Yes,。we had a big meeting on it last night. Admiral Giro, would you please come up
卫
and
生
just
局
talk a
局
little bit
长
about the tremendous success
来
that's been made
讲
on
一下我
testing
们
from
所
where
取
we
得
started?
的胜利。感谢总统先
Thank you,
生
Mr. President. So as of close of
昨
business
天
yesterday, we have been able to perform in the United States over
我们完成
894,000
了
tests. So highly significantly
大
increased
量的检
every
测，
single day. Those tests are performed at a number of
在
places,
不同的
in
地方，
hospitals, in your neighborhood, in the public health laboratories, the state public health
医
laboratories that are in
院
our、
实验
territories,
室
as well as the
等
large
地
reference
方进行了
laboratories
检
that are
测。
members of the American Clinical Laboratory Association. They have done over 650,000
所以
tests, including over
一共有80 多
840,000
万
just
检测
yesterday. I
完
met
成
with。all their CEOs yesterday. They're fully
所以我们
committed to
还要继
increasing
续
testing to
增
meet
多
the
检
requests
测
and the demands of the President and Vice President. Couple words on the point of care test. Point of care means
有
you
关那
stop
个
and you get the result
马上
right
得
there
到
that
检
the
测
President
结
and the Vice
果
President
的，
talked about by Abbott.
这已
Approved in
经
record time by
被
Dr. Steve Kahn and the
FDA
FDA.
快
This is
速
a
批
point of care
准。
test, meaning that from
还
the
有
time to swab
从
to the time you get a positive result,
你开始
5
采
minutes like
样
the
一直
president
到得
said,
到结果
and
才需要
at
5
most
分
15
钟，
minutes for a negative result. So just
还
think
有
of
的
it
是
as a
15分
15-minute
钟
test.
就可以得到
This is
结
not an
果。
esoteric test. There are 18,000
那他
of
们
these
有
little
几千个就
toaster-sized
像
machines
面包
all
面包
over the
机这
country
么
in
大小
doctors'
的
offices
机
and
器，
hospitals right
正
now.
在
And
被这
Abbott
个
will be
Abbott
providing
分送到
50,000
各
or
地。
more tests per day,
那
starting on
从
April 2nd,
4
with
月
the
20
first shipments
号
out already.
4月2
This
号开
complements
始就可
other
以
point
正
of care
式启
testing, like
用
the。Cepheid test that we announced about a week ago.
我们
We also have moderate platforms,
还
so
有
it's not just about the number, it's the type. We have point of care.
不同
We
的
have
方
moderate
式
platforms
检
that are in
测，不光
hospitals
是
and
这
in
个
larger clinics and academic
立
medical
即得
centers.
到结果
And
的
then we have the
检
very
测。
large test. You've heard Ambassador Birx talk about the Roche test and the Roche platforms
有的是
that are in
在
some of these big
医院
reference
进行
laboratories.
的，
So it's
所
not
以
just about the number, but it's about
其实我
painting this very complex ecosystem so
要
that
达到
everybody
的
who
目
needs a
标就
test
是让
can
那
get
些
a
需要
test.
检测的人都得到
On
检测。
priorities, remember,
我
we are
们
still
是
prioritizing
还
those
是
in
要
most
给
need,
那个最
those
需
who
要
are
的
in
人
hospitals or in
进行检
ICUs,
测。
because that test makes a difference
这样
to how they're being treated. Symptomatic first
那
responders,
就是
healthcare workers,
紧机
and as Administrator Verma will always
应
say,
对
those
人
in
员
long-term
还
care
有医护
facilities
人
who are at
员。
high risk. One
那好，
last
最后
point.
2点，
I've learned more
我
about nasal
了解
swabs
了
than I
很
ever
多了
thought I
有
would
关
want
鼻
to learn in
腔
my
采
entire
样的
life.
这个
But it
检
was a
测。
very big thing
他
that
们
the FDA approved
FDA
last week,
上
and it will now
上
be
周
implemented
批
this
准
week.
了。
Instead of having a
他说，与
provider
其
stick
让
this
那
all the
个
way in the back of your nose,
其他
that's
人
uncomfortable, but it also
来
requires
把这
PPE
个
changes every time it's
棉
done.
签
The
伸到
FDA approved, with lots of data supporting it,
深入到你的鼻
self-swab
腔
of
里
your
面，
nose.
所以
So
现在
literally
呢
put a swab, certain kind of
变成
swab,
了
foam
就是
swab in
自
your
我
nose,
检测，你
put it
自
in a
己可以在
plastic
鼻
bag,
腔
give
里
it and
采
drop
样，
it.
然后把
This
它
not
放
only
到这
increases
个。
the speed, but it eliminates all those changes of PPE. So we will be implementing that this week,
再
which
送
will
到
increase
实验
speed,
室
but also save our
来
precious
得到结
resources
果。
as we build them up in the stockpile and out to hospitals.
好，谢谢。
Thank you, Admiral, very much. Yeah, please, go ahead.
总统先
Mr.
生，
President, you
你说
mentioned that the peak
高
could come
峰会
in 2
2周
weeks.
之后
Can
到
you
来。
ensure that everyone
那
that
你
needs a
能够保
ventilator, every
证
single patient
所
that needs
有
one will
需要呼
get
吸
one,
机
will
的都
get
能
there
够
in
得
time? And
到
my
呼
second
吸机
question
吗？
is,
第二
after
个问
invoking
题
the
就
Defense
是
Production Act yesterday with GM, you said that there were
有
a
一
couple of
些
problem children that may require using your authority again. What
有
are
些
those
公
companies
司
and
需要
what
一
aren't they
些
meeting?
Well, I don't have to tell you because those
公司
companies have
可
come
能
into
需要一
line.
些
They're doing a great job. They're working very hard, 24 hours round the clock. So I don't want to
一
give
些
their names now because they are they've been great. They've come into line. And by the way, General Motors is doing a
一些
fantastic job. I don't think we have to
额
worry
外
about
的
General
额
Motors
外
now.
的就
They've
是。
really done a job.
那
And
总
what
统
the
说，我
Admiral
觉得
said
这
also,
我
I
不
think
想
we
把
can
这些
add
公
this,
司的
Admiral.
名
The
字
reason we
告
show
诉他
more
们，比如
cases
说
than anybody else
那
in the
个
world is we're doing more testing than anybody else in
记
the world.
忆
So we have more cases because we're doing
通
far
用电器
more
他们现在
testing
已经做
than
得非
anybody
常
in the
好了，
world.
就
And
之前
remember,
有
we
一些
started
问
with a
题
system
哈
that，
但现在已
was
经解决，
broken
他
for
们正
many
在
years.
全
It
力
was
以赴
broken.
的
And
生
I'm
产
not
呼吸
blaming the last administration. I'm saying other administrations. And our pipeline had
我 们
very
的
little
生
in it,
产
just
线
like we
正
had no
在高效的
ammunition.
运转，
We had very little medical. We had very little in our
并且我们
pipeline.
有子
Now we have
弹。
ammunition, more than hopefully
那
we'll ever need. And we also
有
have
一些
a
子弹我
pipeline
们
that's
可
packed.
能
And
根本
now
不
we have
用，但是
those
我们有充足的
10,000
弹药来
ventilators that we
来
can use
应
because
付
you need some
战胜
quickly. I mean, this
这个
this goes quickly from place to
病毒。
place.
我
I'd love to give
想
them all
要
out right now, but we need them quickly. I don't want to give them out
把
and
这
then we
些
have to take
呼
them back
吸
and move them
机，
someplace else.
就是
So
不
we're
要一
very
下
much
全
prepared,
分发
please.
完哈。下一个问题。
Mr. President, states like Florida
佛
have
罗里
reportedly
达
had
州
100% of their requests for supplies from the National
他
Strategic
们
Stockpile
有很
filled,
多的
but other states like
战略
Massachusetts
储
have
备已
not.
经
So how is that assessment being
足够
made,
了
and why has
那其
Florida
他的州
gotten
可
its
能没
request
有
Well, I
fulfilled?
think you're going to find mind
这
that
样。
almost all states. Look, I was on the
我昨
call
天
yesterday with the governors, and they were
与
happy
州
with
长
the
们
job we're
通
doing.
话，他们
And
非常
I'll
满
tell you
意
what, if
对
you
联
had a
邦
different
政府
administration,
的
they would not
工
have
作
been
表
happy. These
现
are people
非
that
常
speak
满
their
意
mind.。They were happy. It was falsely reported by a couple of people that, oh, gee,
那
they weren't.
过去有
They
的
were
好像
happy.
不开
They
心的，
were
现在也
thrilled.
是开
Florida
心
has
的。
been taken care of, and Michigan has been taken care of. Very important state.
我
To
们
me, it's very important because I'm so proud of what we've done
为
bringing car companies back into
把
Michigan. And we're now dealing with the
汽
governor.
车
And I think, Mike, I can say that a lot of good things
制
are
造
happening in
业
Michigan.
的
Massachusetts, we're dealing with the governor very
让他们
strongly, and
重
we're trying
回
to
密
get
西
things to
根非常的
Massachusetts
自豪。
as rapidly as possible.
他说：“为什么佛罗里达得到了100%的这个战略储备这些物资，但其他州还没有？” 我必须说，所有的州长都全力以赴。你可以跟这些运输行业，他们也在竭尽全力。
What these great companies have been able to do. If we left that to government, it would have been a tough thing. We have mobilized private enterprise.
做了非常正确的决定，让这个私营企业全力运作，并不是全由政府来运作。所以我们这一切都简化了程序。我们正和路易斯安那的州长合作。
If that's what you're getting at, but
迄今为止非常成功，他也很开心。
Amazed at what he's been able to get. In fact, we were even forward thinking. I
我
suggested
建
we
议给
send
他
additional
更多
ventilators
的
and
呼
other
吸
things.
机，
We're
并且要
building
给
a hospital
正
in
在给他
Louisiana,
们建一
very
个新医
importantly. We're
院。
building hospitals in New Jersey. Governor Murphy of New
新泽
Jersey
西
is
州
a
长也是
terrific
个
guy,
非
and
常棒的。
frankly, he wants, he's got
他
a
正
pretty
在
hot spot right there, right
身
next to
处
New
这
York.
个
And
疫情的
we're
这个
doing
高发
hospitals,
区，
we're
因
doing
为临近。
ventilators, we're getting a lot to Governor Murphy.
昨天晚上我还
Last night I
跟
spoke to the governor of last night I
康
spoke
州
to the
的
governor of Connecticut. We had a great talk with him. We are
通话
really doing a job. Look, Gavin Newsom, the governor
加州的州
of
长
California, he's been
我
terrific.
们
We sent him a boat way ahead of
也
schedule.
是
The
提
ship
前
way ahead
把
of schedule, hospital ship, the Mercy, with 1,000 beds, operating rooms,
仁
and
慈号
it's been in LA for
医
3
疗
days
船
already. So
送抵
I
加
think
州。
they're really happy. And when you think about it, in New York,
在
we built 2,900 hospital rooms, beds. Nobody's ever seen it before.
我们
The
在纽
governor's
约
never seen
增
anything
加
like that
了
before. This was
20
done
多
by
万
federal
的
government, not by state government. This was done by the federal
病
government.
床。
They're opening it tomorrow. I wanted to be there
我
so badly,
本
but
想
Secret
去纽
Service
约
and all
参
of the
与
people
这个
involved won't let
启动
me.
仪式，但
They won't let me.
是
I would love to be
我
there, but they
的
won't
安
let
保
me
系
for
统
obvious
不允
reasons.
许我
But
这
I
么
would have loved to
做。
have been at the opening tomorrow of
那
the
在
hospital in New York, Javits Center, Javits
Javits
Center.
中心
But
在纽约就会
we're very proud
开
of the job
启
we've
这
done.
个
We've
临时
mobilized
医院，
and getting better and better every day. And the
还有
task
我们
force
的
headed by your vice president, the job they've done. And
疫
they don't
情
even
行动
sleep.
小组
Okay, any
他们
other
都
questions?
Sir, may I just
不
follow up
睡
on
觉
your letter
的
to the governors
努
that
力
you
工作。
sent, since we were on the topic of governors?
曾
You
经
sent a letter to
给
governors at the end of the
州
week
长
saying that you guys were going to be developing
信
criteria to be able to
你还
classify
你说你会
counties
把他们
based on
分类，根
whether
据
they
这
were
个疫情
hotspots
的
or
严重
whatnot.
情
And I
况
wanted to
来分
know
类。
if you have enough tests currently to be able
他
to
说你现在有
accurately
足够的
rank
数
those
据
counties.
来
Yeah, we're ranking counties and we're
给
ranking
他们分
states.
类嘛？其
And a lot
实
of
我
people
们
put out false information because
要
they don't
在
know what
给
they're
那个
talking
州
about.
来排
And we
序，
took
就
over
是
a
看严
dead
重程
barren
度。
system. We took over a system that was obsolete. It was good for a tiny little sample of people. And even that didn't work because when CDC first looked at their test, the biggest problem they
起
had is
初
the
的
test
时
didn't
候，
work.
他们的
That
检
wasn't
测
from us.
剂并不
That's been there a
工
long
作。
time.
现在我
Now
们
we
有
have
世
the
界
best
上
tests
最
in the
好的
world,
测试，
and nobody has. Now they're
所以
all
我
calling,
们
can we get
要
the quick test? We call
采
it the
用
quick
这
test.
个
We're,
快速
by
的
the way,
检测法，
probably more accurate, and it
几
takes
分
a
钟
few
就可以
minutes. I
完
mean,
成。
it's pretty amazing what we've done. No,
所以
we're
我们
getting along
与
great with the governors. Yeah, go ahead, please.
州长
No,
合
go
作愉
ahead,
快。
please.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you more specifically about the strategy that you plan to unveil on Tuesday. What factors are you taking into consideration? What can the American people expect? And is it possible that these April 30th guidelines could be extended?
Well, we hope not, but we think it's going to, we have
我们有很多
aspirational
想
thoughts. We
给
would have loved
给
to have
大
done it a
家
little
信
bit sooner, but
心，
we have to
所
do
以
it
我
right.
们
We could have done it. We could have done it on Easter.
也可以做在
There's a good chance
复
that
活节
if
恢
it's
复
coming
正
down or
常
if it's still going
但
up,
是
maybe it's going to be coming down by that, but we just
目
felt
前
it
来
was too
看的
soon. We
是
can't take a chance.
病情高发
Again,
区，
because of what we've done and because
高
of the fact that we've stopped the
高发
flow
时
from
期。
China so early, because the question is from a lot of my friends, why don't
我
we
的
just
朋友
wing
很
it?
多
Why did
说
we just wing
我
it?
们
And I kept asking, and we did models
为什么
now.
就
Finally, we
就
got these
是
models in. And you hear about the 2.2 million people would have
该
died.
做什
I
么
don't
做
mean
什
we
么。
would
那
have
我
had
就说我们
2.2
现在
million
有这些
cases.
医学模
These are
型，
2.2 million people would have
想象
died.
一下这个预
2.2
测
million
有
people.
200
Look,
多
we're going to
万
have
的
a
死亡，如果我们
meeting
不
or
采
speech
取
or
任
press
何措
conference or
施。
something on Tuesday. I thought what I do, I was going to announce
所
the
以
end of April on Tuesday, but I
本
said
来
let's
我
do
就
it
是
now
说
because somewhere
等
along
到
the line
周
it's
二
going to
再
leak. We
宣
might as
布
well just
这
do it
个
now and get rid of all the leaks. This way it
严
didn't
格
nice
的
and
规则
clean.
要持续到
But
4月底，但
we
是我
have
知
to
道一
really
定
do a
会
great
泄露
job
出
for
去，
another
所以
couple
我
of
今天
weeks.
就宣布了。
And I think we're going to be in great shape. And we're going to be in a position, even with what we're trying to do with restaurants, with
将要
deductibility, we
想
have to
尽
get these
各种
restaurants
办
back
法来
in.
帮助私
We have
营
to
企
get
业，
our
就像我
businesses
们
open.
给
We
这
have to
个
get the planes
餐
flying.
馆业
We have to get
所提
everything
供的
going.
这
We have to
个
get even the cruise ships. I mean, we have to get those cruise
优
ships
惠，就是从
moving
餐
along.
馆
We had
订
the
餐，
greatest
企业从
economy in
餐
the
馆
history
订
of
餐
the
可以得到
world
优惠。
3 weeks ago. And now we've said, please don't work anymore.
其实我们
We're
现
actually
在是
paying
给
people
大
not
家
to
付
work.
工资，让他们不要
Nobody's ever
上
heard that.
班。
That's not for us. People want to work. But at the same
与
time,
此同时，我
and
们
I'm
也
so
很
glad
开
that
心，我
Dr.
们这
Fauci
些
and Dr.
专
Birx
家
gave
们
us
给
a
我们
number.
这些数字。
And the number on the outside, and maybe it's not even on the outside, we don't know, is
他们预测
2.2
就是
million
说，
people
我
would have
们
died
如
if we
果
didn't do
不
what
做
we're
现在要
doing.
做的、正在
And
做
now
的
we're
事
looking at
情，
numbers that are going to be
那就
much,
会
much,
有
much lower
2
than
点
that. And it
200
makes everything we're doing feel
多万
much
的人
better to
死
me.
亡
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question for you, but I'd like to let my colleague Gimish finish her
That'll be
second question,
fine.
if that's
Finish
all right.
it. Go ahead. That'd
Thanks,
be fine.
Jeremy.
I was going to call on you next. You know that.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've
你也
also
曾
said
说
that
过
at one point that you thought more people might die from the economic tragedies and the
因
economic
为
problems
经
in
济
America
状
due
况
to the
死亡的
coronavirus
人
outbreak.
可能
What health officials
会
are
更
telling you
多
that? And Dr. Fauci, could you speak to that? The idea that there might be
有人
mental
跟
health
你
and
说
suicide
那
related
个
to this. Would that outpace at some
那
point
因
the
为
virus's
忧郁
impact
症
on the
啊等
society?
等其
Well,
他
I
，Thank
could
you.
the
ask
死
Dr.
亡。
Fauci to come up, but it's common sense. You're going to
那
have
当
massive
然，这么
depression, meaning
糟
mental
糕的
depression.
情
You're going to
况
have
下
depression in
会有人
the
忧
economy
郁，
also. But you're going to have mental depression for people. You're going to have
还有
large
很多
numbers
的
of
高
suicides.
发
Take a look
的
at what happens
自
in a
杀
really
率。
horrible recession or worse. So you're going to have tremendous
你
suicides.
知
But
道
you know what you're going to
还
have
有
more than
更
anything
多
else?
的
Drug
吗？
addiction.
更多发
You
生
will
的
see
吗？
drugs
或者
being
是
used
这
like
种
nobody's
吸
ever used them
毒、
before. And people
成
are going to be
瘾。
dying all over the place from drug addiction because you would have people that had a
本来
wonderful
有的
job at a
人
restaurant
在，
or even
比如
owned a
说
restaurant.
在
I
餐
spoke
饮
to
业
great
很
people
好的
today
工作，
that have
甚
done a
至
great
他们
job. And
拥
one
有这个
day,
餐
they're
饮
at the
业，
top of
但
their
是
business.
突
They're
然
celebrity chefs. They've
间
got
就
the
失
most
去了工
successful
作
restaurants. And
比如说
in
这
one day, they
些
have nothing.
名
They've gotten
厨，
wiped
但
out.
是一夜
One
之
day
间就失去了
from
工
our
作，
enemy, this invisible,
这是一
horrible
个非常
scourge. So
大的打击。
when you ask me that,
所以
it's,
这是
it's
很
so
容易
easy to
想
figure
象的
that.
这
I
种
mean,
后果。
massive drug use, massive depression, mental depression,
大
massive
量
numbers of
的
suicide.
精神
Anxiety causes, you know,
精
disease.
神
They
上
say
的
a lot of people.
情绪上
You're going to
的
have tremendous, and hopefully we're
问
not
题，
going to have
还
that
有自
because
杀等
hopefully
等。
by what
所
we're
以我
doing,
们
we
想要
get the
达
best
成
of
的
both
就
worlds.
是
We don't have 2.2 million deaths. We have a number that's
两方面
much
都要
less,
处理
much,
好。
much less. And at
所
the
以
same
我
time,
们
we get our country
帮
running
助大家
again.
来
Please.
准备
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
President.
You were
重启
next.
经济。
He was very nice in doing it, though, nevertheless. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Which
sir.
is unusual for CNN.
两个问
Two
题。
quick questions.
首先，
First of all, during this 30-day additional period, do you anticipate at all relaxing
你
those
有没有
restrictions by
想过
region during these
这
additional
I
30
don't
days
think
or no?
so. It's a great
解除
question,
这
actually. I don't
些
think so.
规
And I asked that the
则
same. I said, how about
跟对
Nebraska?
某些
How
州
about
解除
Idaho?
规
How about
则。
Iowa? And you know what? Those people are so great. The whole Midwest, they want to. I don't think they want to be be in that position, actually. And probably I was given a pretty strong look by these two people. They said, we don't like that idea. So, we're relying on them. They're the best in their profession, and they didn't like the idea.
And secondly, sir, I want to ask you about some
And we
comments.
could do it, but I don't think it would be good.
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to ask you about some comments you made on Friday. You were talking about governors of different states, and you said, I want them to be appreciative. You also said, if they don't treat you right, I don't call. These are direct quotes, sir.
Excuse me, ready? Take a look at what I said. I want them to be appreciative of me, okay? And then you cut it off because it's fake news.
You and of your administration,
Listen,
absolutely.
Please, let me just finish.
你刚才说的方法就是好像是让他们对我个人感兴趣，但那是假新闻，那是不是真实的。
Because here's the story. You ready? I said I want you to be appreciative of me, and then you go on, and then I go on, and you cut it off. But it says
You said,
because
I
when
want
you're
them to be
not,
appreciative. I don't want them to say things that aren't true. I want them to be appreciative. We've done a
记者
great
是
job.
在
And I'm not talking about me. I'm
当
talking about
年
Mike Pence,
当
the task force. I'm
周
talking about
五
FEMA,
周
the Army Corps of
总统
Engineers.
所
But
说
then
的
you went on to
话，
say, if they don't treat you right, I don't call. He's a different type of
I
person,
don't
you said,
call.
referring to
No,
the
I
vice
don't
president.
call. No, I don't call the governor of
Why
Washington.
in this
now.
time-
But Mike Pence calls, and the head of FEMA calls. I don't stop them. Did I ever ask you to do
评论
anything negative, Mike, to Washington, the state of Washington? Michigan,
我
I
喜
love
欢
that
密西
state.
根
That's one of my favorite places in the whole world, Michigan.
在这个
And
世
I'm
界
so
上
proud
最
of
喜
what's
欢
happened
地
with the
区
auto
之
industry.
一
It's coming back to Michigan.
我不需要
No,
给他们
I
打
don't
电
have to call
话，
because I'm probably better off not. Because we don't get, he's a failed
不跟
presidential
他打
candidate.
电话
He's
可
a
能更
nasty
好。
person. I don't like the governor of Washington. So you know who
但是
calls?
我会
I
让
get
副
Mike
总
Pence to
统
call.
去给他们
I
打
get the head of FEMA
打
to
电
call.
话，
I get the
或
admiral
者
to
是
call.
让那个紧
But
急
what you
叔叔给
didn't
他们
say,
打
see,
电
you
话
started。it off, and you talked about, I have to be appreciated. But then, when you read the rest,
那
it
你
said
刚
because
才
if you
念
don't
的那
appreciate,
个
you're not respecting
方
these
式
incredible
就会让
people, the
人
two
产生
admirals. You're not
误解。
appreciating FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers who
要
built
记
2,900
得
beds in 3.5 days, and you're
陆
not
军工程
appreciating
兵
all of
他
the work
们
that's been
建
done,
了
and you're not appreciating these incredible
那么多
people
医院做了
from
那么
private
多事
enterprise
情，
that are
难道
delivering
他们不应
things
该
in
得
numbers that
到
nobody's ever
感
seen.
激吗？
See, and that's why people
还
aren't
有在
watching
座的这
CNN very
些
much
伟大
anymore.
的这
That's
些
why they
公
don't
司的
like
这
it.
些
That's why your
人，
ratings are no good. Because you even after
并且
knowing
你
the
已
truth
经
for
知
days
道
now, you bring up the old lie.
正在发生
Read the rest of your question, the rest of your
这么
statement.
多天了，
You
你
didn't
还
put
要
in.
把这个旧
You
的
have to
话
put that
题
in.
再
And
重
it said in
提
there FEMA, and it said in there Army Corps of Engineers.
要知
Because
道
when they
如
disrespect
果
me, they're disrespecting our
某
government.
些人
And you
对
know what?
我
I don't mind if I'm disrespected, but they
不尊
can't
重，那
disrespect
没
the
有
Army
关
Corps of
系，但
Engineers
是
and
他
FEMA.
们不应
Why
该
is
对
the
其
lack of
他人
Please
不
go
尊
ahead.
重。
I want them to appreciate
我
the
只
incredible
是
job
想
we're
让他
doing.
们
We are
对
doing a
我
job the
们
likes
所
of
做
which has never
的
been done
工作
before.
表示感
And there are a
激。
couple of people that know that. But for
其
political
实他
reasons,
们
let's say they're
知道
Democrats. They don't
我
want to
们所
give
做的工
this
作，但
administration
是
credit,
出
and
于
that's
某种
okay.
政治
But I don't
原
have to
因，
deal with them.
比如
But
说
our vice president does deal with them. Please go ahead.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
that's why
President.
CNN is not
他
trusted
们就
anymore. 是 They are not
表现
trusted.
出
They are
没有
fake
那么
news.
多
Remember
感。
that. Go ahead. Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about the
我还想
extension
问一
of the
下有
CDC
关这个
guidelines you've announced
Yeah.
today
CDC
through
这
the
个
end of
规
next month.
则
And of
就
course, you
是
know that there have been shelter-in-place
疾
orders
病
that
预
have
防
been
中心
imposed by governors and
就
mayors
是
all throughout the country.
延伸
And when
到
you
4
take that
月
all into
底，
account, it sounds like, and it seems like you've acknowledged that America essentially will be
所以
shut
你
down
等于是
for the next few
说
weeks, maybe even the next 2 months. You mentioned June 1st as a date in which you'd
在
like
No,
America
we
to
think
未来
it's
的
going to really
有
start to
未来的
open up.
2个
We think
月
that
都
that's going
会
to be the
像这
bottom
样这
of the
种
hill.
关
That's
闭
where we're
状
looking at June
态
1st, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. So we have this hill.
然后
If we did
总
nothing,
统
the hill
说
would have been
我
up
们做
here.
了很多，就
We
把
did
这
a lot.
个
We did
高峰
just
期
about
延
maximum.
缓
And we
了。
got lucky
我
because
们
we stopped
在
China from coming
很
in.
早就
And then later on we
阻止
stopped Europe from. We
了
got lucky. We
从
got
中国
very
来
lucky.
的游客。
The people that were coming in here, they went to Italy, they went to Spain, they went to
我
other
们非
countries.
常的幸运，
We got
因
lucky.
为我们采
And they
取
got
了强
unlucky,
有
to be
力
honest
的
with you.
及
You look
时
at
措
what's going on
施
in。Italy and Spain in particular. So, no, I don't
所以
want that.
6 月
June 1st,
1
we think
6
we
月
can
1
reach
号，
the
我们
bottom
希
of
望
that
那是
hill on
疫
June
情的
1st.
低谷，那
And
那
that would be
将
a
是
great
一
thing.
个好
And
的
I
事
have
情。
confidence in the two doctors. I think that that could be a date. It could even be sooner. Could be a little bit later. It could be sooner.
也许
But I think people would be very happy if we did a job and saved
如果我
potentially
们
millions of lives. I think
也
people
许我
would
们
be
可
very
以
happy with that date.
早一点从
Questions are
Okay,
actually asked.
yes, please, go
Sir,
ahead.
Mr.
经济不
President,
正
my
常
question actually，
但
has
是
to
我
do
们
with
帮
the
助很多
$2.2
人
trillion
拯救了他们的生
relief
命，
bill
大家应该
that
开
you
心的。
signed into law. In your view, do you
那
think
你
that
觉得
another
还
relief
会
bill,
有
another
其
phase
他
bill
的
may be necessary? And are you prepared to
经
support
济
that,
救
Mr.
助
President?
法？
Well, I'm prepared to do whatever's
我会
necessary to number
做
one,
一
save
切
lives, and number
首
two,
先
bring our
帮
economy
助
back strong, just like it was before. I think
拯
our
救生
economy
命，
has a chance
其
to be
次
just
就
as
是
good
帮
and even
助
better
拯救
than it
经
was
济
before.
和
And
美
remember,
国
a
人
lot of the
的
money
生
that you read
活。
about, that's all coming
我们
back.
给
These are loans to great companies
每
that
很
got
多公
stopped
司
from
提
doing business.
供
They'll
贷
be
款
back very，
这样
So much of the money that we're talking about, that money's coming back, and we'll take warrants, meaning we'll take pieces of the company for the taxpayers of our nation. I expect that we'll make a lot of money with that money. We're going to make a lot of money, and it's okay. I don't even want to talk about making money, because what I want to talk about is two things. Number one is saving lives, and number two is bringing our economy back. Okay? But I think we're going to do very well. That whole money, a lot of it's coming back. Please.
Mr. President, thank you. Earlier this afternoon, you had tweeted that there are on average 8.5 million Americans tuned into these daily press briefings. Yet there are some networks out there that are, about taking these briefings.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. No, I've read that.
What do you say to
Well,
these
I've read
detractors?
that CNN doesn't want to cover them. I've read that, except they can't help them because the ratings are so high. You know, if the ratings were low, they wouldn't be here. This man wouldn't be here. In 100 years, you could bet your life that he would never be here with CNN and all their cameras if they're bad, because we help their ratings. We lift up their ratings because their ratings are very low. But for the most part, I haven't heard that. I will say the Washington Post has a drive on not to go to the President of the United States news conference because, frankly, so many people are watching. We're getting the word out. We're getting the accurate word out. And a lot of people are happy about it. A lot of people aren't. But they should be happy. When I have the general, when I have Sima, and when I have Tony, and when I have our incredible, these are all like people that have become big stars, okay? But they've done a great job. But Deborah has done a fantastic. All of these people, they don't want to be stars. You know what they want? They want to win. They want to win the battle against the virus. They've been fighting this stuff their whole life. Between Ebola and swine flu, and, I don't know. I'm not sure I'd love your life, but that's what you like, right? That's what they do. They fight disease. And you know what? There's nobody that does it better. But I think the American public, ultimately, they should be the decider. It's like, if they don't want to watch, they shouldn't watch. And we shouldn't have bigger ratings than The Bachelor or, as the New York Times said, we have Monday night football type ratings. Now, I didn't say that. I have no idea what they are, in a sense, but I know that the Times, they say it's all the news that's fit to print. I say it's all the news that's not fit to print, because I think they are not honest people. But that's okay. But they can't help it. But even they said that the ratings are like Monday night football ratings, and that these are like Bachelor finale. That's their end. When the big deal happened, I have no idea what happened because I'm too busy working on this. Somebody will tell me what happened. So, no, I think it's terrible. When they don't want the President of the United States to have a voice, you're not talking about democracy any longer. Please. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. President. You've talked a lot about concerns about leaving the economy for so long. Was there any dissent from your top economic advisors in your decision to leave the guidelines in place until the end of April?
No, and this is before we heard the 2.2 million people. I mean, we had a lot of people were saying maybe we shouldn't do anything. Just ride it. They say ride it like a cowboy. Just ride it. Ride that sucker right through. That's where the 2.2 million people come in. Would have died, maybe, but it would have been 1.6 to 2.2, and that's not acceptable. But there were a lot of people that said, I thought about it, I said, maybe we should ride it through. You know, you always hear about the flu. I talk about it all the time. We had a bad flu season. We're in the midst of a bad flu season. You know, we had a bad season last year, as an example, a bad flu season. And you'll have 35, 36, 37,000 people die, sometimes more, sometimes less. But this is different, and part of this is the unknown, and part of it also is the viciousness of it. I had a friend who went to a hospital the other day. He's a little older, and he's heavy, but he's a tough person. And he went to the hospital, and a day later, he's in a coma. I call, how's he doing? Sir, he's in a coma, he's unconscious. He's not doing well. The speed and the viciousness, especially if it gets the right person, it's horrible. It's really horrible. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, this may be good for some of the advisors as well. We've heard some rumors that Louisiana is really going to get hit hard next because of the possibility with Mardi Gras. Have you guys seen any data to back that up of what happened a few weeks ago and whether or not that's contributing to the spike in Louisiana?
I don't think it's a rumor. I think it's a fact. And Louisiana's been hit hard. And Louisiana is an example. It started off with like nobody for so long. When I spoke to the governor. But Deborah or Tony, any?
再请医学专家来讲一下。你听我们说过，1周前对路易斯安那这个大幅增长表示忧虑。这些地区我们仍在密切关注。有些人一旦传染就恶化。我们看到这个传染之迅速。
We think it may have been circulating there for, a couple of weeks. We don't like to. I don't like to look backwards. I only like to look forwards. And really, we are putting all of our effort into ensuring that the people of New Orleans, the people of the Detroit region, frankly, the people of New York. I mean, some of the fastest growing counties are not New York itself, New York City. When you look at it per 100,000, it's Rockland. It's Bergen. So I mean, these are all of these places are people that have transited through cities, and that's why we really did want the travel advisory, just to really warn people to watch out for their own health, to really take their temperatures. And so it can go from 50, 100, 500 cases, and the next thing you know, it's 2,000, it's 4,000, it's 10,000. Because it then gets across all communities, people get very sick.
You made the comment about New Orleans. This can happen anywhere, and that's really one of the issues that we're concerned about, and why we were so reluctant to pull back at a time when we need to put our foot on the gas as opposed to on the brake. And as with Dr. Berg said, this is exactly what you see. There are a number of communities, cities, or states, what have you, out there, in which they're trickling along like that. Don't get
一开始好像感染数字比较小，就是一点突然就是成几何这种技术增长。
That's what happened in a terrible way with New York. That's what we're trying to avoid in
这就是我们观察的结果。所以当数字还比较小的时候，你千万不要掉以轻心。
Because they're very vulnerable to an explosion.
Mr. President, last question for me, sir. Just real quick. I asked the Vice President a week ago, and I think we talked about it last week as well. You took the test that first time, I remember that, and I think you took it last week, Mr. Vice President. Have you had a chance to take it again? Does it get easier the second time around? How are you feeling?
I think I'm waiting for that little 45-minute test. I
他
sort of
说
like
我
that.
挺喜
Now it's
欢
down to
45 分钟的
5-minute
检测，那现在5分钟就
No,
可
I
以。
haven't, but I
我
think
可以
I
再
will
检测
take it
一
again
次。
if it's appropriate. I
我
don't
还没
feel
有
there's any symptoms.
感觉
I
到
don't
任
notice.
何
Have you
的症
noticed any
状。
sniffles? Nothing, right? So far I haven't felt that way. But there was a big, strong point made
我觉得
originally. I
有
think it
人
still holds.
说
Take the test if you need it. If
如果
you
你
have
有
the symptoms. If you don't take it.
症
That's
状
put out by the
你测一下，
professionals.
但
So
如果你没
I
有
don't
症
have it.
状
But
就
I
不要
would
测。
I
那
would take it.
我
I just wanted to
还
say
是
one
会
thing
测。
also about what Tony had mentioned. So
在
I grew
皇
up
后
in
区
Queens,
纽
New York,
约，
and right next to a
然
place
后
called
它真的是在
Elmhurst,
那个
Queens.
Elmhurst
And they have
旁边
a hospital that's a very good
那
hospital,
边有一
Elmhurst
个
Hospital, right? I've known it. I've known where it
医
is.
院，
I can tell you the color on the
非常熟
outside,
悉
the
那个
size
地
of the
方，连那
windows. I mean, I
个
know it
建
very
筑的
well.
颜色我都知道。
I was
那就是我
near my community
曾经生活过的社区。
and
我
I've been watching that for
过
the
去
last
一
week on
周
television.
在观察那个
Body bags
地
all
区，
over
到处都
in
是
hallways.
尸
I've
袋。
been watching them bring
他
in trailer
们
trucks,
送来
freezer
了
trucks,
这
the
个
freezer
冷
trucks,
冻卡车
because they can't
来
handle
运送尸
the
体，
bodies.
因为太
There's
多
so
的
many
尸
of them.
袋
This
了
is。in my
那曾是
essentially in
我
my community
生
in
活的
Queens,
社
Queens,
区，
New
在
York.
皇后
I've seen
区。
things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen
那
them on
我
television in
看
faraway lands. I've never seen them in our
遥
country.
远的其他国家发生过这些事
Elmhurst
情，
Hospital.
我无法想象就在我的
Unbelievable
这
people.
个熟
I
悉
mean,
的地方
I-
发生。
when I see the trucks pull up to take out bodies, and these are
这
trucks that are
个
as long as the
冷冻
Rose
卡
Garden,
车是
and they're pulling up to
巨
take
型
out
的，就像这
bodies, and you look
个
inside
玫瑰
and you
花
see the
园这么
black
大。
body bags. You say, what's in there? It's Elmhurst Hospital. must be supplies. It's not
别
supplies,
人
it's people.
还以为这是
I've
运
never
送
seen
物
anything
资，
like
结果
it.
不是，是来
We're doing, these people
拉
are
走
doing
尸
a
体的，从医
fantastic
院拉
job.
走
And
尸
somebody else
体。
who's doing a fantastic job is sitting here who is
我
the
们
head of
跟
the
那
task
个
force. And I
行
just maybe
动
want to
小
finish off
组
because I'd like to ask Mike,
来谈一
what do you
下
think
我
about
们如
what
何
we've
做
done，and
我们做了什么
where do，you think we're going? And
将要做
how
什
do you
么。
feel also, and you've studied this so closely, how do you
还有
feel
关
about
这个
the curve and the June
那
1st
Viola-
date? And that's aspirational, but I
彭
think
斯
that's
副总统的
really
Viola
modified aspirational, because I think we're going to hit it. And maybe we'll even beat it. Okay, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me just join you in thanking the American people for the efforts that the people of this nation have made over the past 15 days, and that we know they will continue to make over the next 30. You heard the President speak today about the modeling, and on Tuesday he will share with the nation the full range of counsel of the team that he assembled now months ago at the White House Coronavirus Task Force. We'll lay out to the country what could have been, but what we're continuing to work to make a reality. But in the meantime, every American, I think every American should have a grateful heart. First and foremost, all the incredible healthcare workers that are on the front lines at places like Elmhurst and elsewhere every single day. As Dr. Burke said, getting just a few hours of sleep and going right back into work. I mean, they are the hands and feet of American compassion, and I want to say on behalf of your president and on behalf of a grateful nation that we're with you. We're going to continue to work tirelessly with these outstanding leaders at FEMA to make sure that you have the protective equipment to be able to do your job safely and go home to your family. We're going to continue to work with these incredible distributors. Literally, the aircraft that landed at JFK this morning is the first of 51 aircraft that are going to be coming in from around the world, and it's all headed to support our healthcare workers and people that are on the front lines. But also, Mr. President, I want to say thank you to American businesses whose generosity is shining forth every day. The two insurance companies that you mentioned have waived co-pays and are providing full coronavirus coverage to Americans for the full treatment that people that are enduring this virus are experiencing. But American businesses like those so well represented here are stepping up every day with what the President likes to call a spirit, the likes of which we haven't seen for quite a while in this country. And it's truly inspiring. I also want to join your words about this team that you've assembled, not only the healthcare team, the extraordinary team at FEMA and HHS, but all of our partners at the state and local level, the work that they're doing. Mr. President, when you tapped me to do this 5 weeks ago, you said, I want a full partnership with our states. I want to make sure the federal government is there working with our governors and all the local health officials, and to all of you who are managing your states, to all of you that are implementing those healthcare policies on the local level, you have our admiration and our commitment to continue to be with you. I think what the President laid out today, while it is, I'm sure, for many Americans that were hoping we would be with this sooner, there may be a modest sense of frustration and disappointment. But what I hear, speaking to these healthcare experts, is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And that as the American people continue to put into practice the President's coronavirus guidelines for America, as each one of us continues to do our part, social distancing, avoiding groups of more than 10, using a drive-through at local restaurants, avoiding unnecessary travel, as every American continues to listen to your state and local leaders, to heed that domestic travel advisory that the CDC issued on Saturday night. We're going to hasten the day that we get to the other side of this, as the President said, and that we truly do believe that while there are challenges in the weeks ahead, there is hope. That as every American continues to put these guidelines into practice, as every single one of us continues to do our part, that we'll get through this. I mean, when the American people know how tall the hill is, Mr. President, we've never failed to get over it and then some. And I think with your leadership, with this extraordinary team that you've assembled, with the great leadership that we have at state and local levels, the partnership with American businesses, and the can-do spirit of the American people, we'll get through this, and we'll get through this together.
我想结束的时候讲，我们都在这个里
I just want
面。
to end by saying that
我没有见
we're
过
all in this
这样子
together, all of us. I
我
have
们
never
的
seen anything like it.
我们的
The
精神
unity, the esprit de corps, the spirit.
很
I've
可
never
惜，
seen
这
anything
个
like it.
敌人
It's a
是
beautiful thing to watch. Unfortunately, the
很
enemy is death.
不
It's death.
不
A
幸
lot of people are dying. So it's very
但是我
unpleasant.
们
It's
的
a very unpleasant
能力
thing to go through.
还有我们
But the
的
level of competence, the level of caring, the
感
level of
情，
love, I just think it's
我不
brilliant.
知道别的国家
And it's possibly happening in
但
other
是我
countries.
们
Possibly, I don't
很
know. I can't speak to other countries, but I can
我非
speak to
常骄傲
the United
作为
States of
总
America.
统，
And I've said it before,
谢
and I'll say
谢，
it again.
拜
I
拜。
am very proud to be your president. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.